1, 2, 3. Testing, testing. 1, 2, 3. Testing. Trying to make sure everything's up and running. Be doing a lot of review today. We're going to be looking over a lot of resources. A's. Not the Ziggy one. There's a few different ones out right now that are Q&A. Let me make sure we have the right ones open. That way we can just kind of flip through them. Now there's a condensed version of an interview. With Jonathan Rogers. That is what we're gonna take a look at. Okay, I think this is the condensed one. We're gonna close that. Let's check for one more. Okay. All right, I think I have the two newest ones up. We're also gonna take a look at Maxwell. Of course, I'm doing this off camera. I'm just trying to make sure to have all the resources ready so we can jump through them in succession while we're, while we're talking about stuff. We'll see. We're going to look through mobile analytics. We're going to look through Maxroll. We're going to check out the recent interviews. And of course, anything that's been released on the Pathofexile 2 Twitter page. Hey, David, it's good to see you, buddy. I haven't seen you in forever, my friend. I'm about to actually swap over right now. Give me 1 second. Swap over to live. Make sure we're showing up properly everywhere. How have you been, my friend? So I'm gonna go over the two latest interviews. If you're interested in the reveal information, I actually have some very condensed videos that I made and put together myself on my YouTube channel, which you can find just searching for Eldrovo's domain. If you want a link, I can link it. I could pull it up right now. Actually, give me 1 second. And these should work. It's been a while since I've checked them, mind you. But the YouTube channel should work. Everything should work. I can even check right quick because it has been a little bit of time. It'd take me to, yep, takes us to my page. And as you can see, I have a couple of videos up. One of them talking about information that you should know when you're going through the campaign. One of them talking about all the in-game mechanics, and one of them talking about crafting. But today, like I said, we're going to go through new information or information that's just recently been found out. One of the interviews that I had not taken a look at was Dark Microtransaction and Ghazi with Jonathan Rogers. And so we're going to take a look at it and see what we think, see if there's any information that we didn't already kind of know. and whatnot. So take a look at it.
Single question in.
I'm sure the passive tree will receive massive renovations all through early access. Like, I just have no doubt of that. So one thing I should mention about that is that it does allow you to overcap your life by double. Pointed out.
Massive deal.
Yeah, Mark actually mentioned that I forgot to mention that upside in the thing. You probably assume that this video was ready like a week ago. Well, let me tell you, we were rendering it out the night before. There are a lot of things about that video that I certainly would have wanted to improve, and the monkey running off into the tree was definitely on the list, okay?
You know, I'm going to ask, can we hope maybe Blight can come to Pathofexile 2 at some point here?
Druid sort of has 3 primary forms. Don't know whether Rishi will be unhappy about me spoiling the exact inner workings of this. Our numbers don't scale as fast as some games do, and we're not.
It's going to be a 10 out of 10 game, bro.
We really expected, but certainly there seems to be a lot of hype.
So this one is going to be an obvious one. If I didn't ask it, everyone would be mad. So there's 6 classes coming to early access. Some of them have already been showcased, but they're not in there. Namely, the Druid and the Huntress. So I think people are curious about, are they coming soon? What's going on with these classes?
Yeah, so they'll definitely be coming relatively soon. I'm not going to promise a date, but certainly the next 2 classes you see will be those 2, like in terms of in early access. And I think I've even said this before, but we really underestimated what it takes to finish a class, I think. It's like you make a bunch of skills and you're like, oh yeah, you know, made the skills, that's the class, right? But in PoE it really isn't, because you know, you need to make sure they can all be supported well, you need to make sure there's uniques that support it, that there's passive tree stuff that supports it. It's like a whole thing of like getting all that stuff into a good state. It's like plus also the skills, plus also thinking about all the stuff that can happen with other classes and like how does it tie in with all the mechanics. Like, it's just a Goliath task. So I think the Huntress and the Druid are not far away. The Druid, we still have 1 form that we still need to get finished. So there's like there's still some more skill work to do there. The Huntress, I think we mostly have like working prototypes that we're happy with for most of the skills, but like there's still a little bit more to do. But yeah, it's just all that other sort of finishing work around like tying it into all the other systems, making sure everything's good, that we need to get done. And you know, it won't take us too long, but you know, at some point we just had to say like, hey, you know, can we really do this for early access with all the other stuff that we're doing? And we just felt like we couldn't. So you know, we decided to cut for now.
Could you like give us a number? How many forms are we talking about?
So there's 3 primary forms for the Druid, but there's a couple of other like random shapeshifts around. I mean, you actually saw one of them, right? There's the shapeshift on the Ascendancy, the demon form. So there's a few other things, bits and pieces like that around the place. But yeah, the Druid sort of has 3 primary forms. The one that no, maybe I'm not going to spoil it actually. Yeah, I'm not going to say anything about it.
Go on, spoil it. So this is probably a good time to ask this thing, because you're talking about you know, the additional classes here. Does that mean we can basically expect changes to the passive skill tree? Because obviously there's the 6 starting nodes now, so when you add the other classes, there's going to be new branches, I'm assuming, added for each one of these classes at this point, or were they going to double down on previous ones?
I'm sure the passive tree will receive massive renovations all through early access. Like, I just have no doubt of that. Until you really play it like properly, you just don't even know what's missing. One other thing I might mention, just because I don't know if it's like hugely well known, the starting area of the tree for each class actually changes. There's actually 3 variants. So effectively, we actually did this first when we were playing the witch and the sorceress. So effectively, if you're a witch, you get 1 variant of the starting area, and if you're a sorceress, you get another variant. And then if you're neither of those 2 classes, then there's a 3rd variant that can go there, so that all the other classes, when they go there, they get slightly different stats again. The reason for that is because there's this problem that you have with where players, when they see a node that's got multiple things on it and one of the things does not affect them, people just really don't want to allocate a node like that, even if the values on it are the same as what they otherwise would have gotten. So when we first did this, when we had 1 variant for everyone, the witch sorceress nodes were like plus 8% or whatever minion and spell damage, right? And we found that sorceresses, even though a sorceress would otherwise get just 8% spell damage, sorceresses would just not take that because it's got this minion thing on it and they don't want that. So by having the trees be separate, it just sort of prevents that problem immediately. When we realized that we could swap those 2 out, we're like, well, hang on, we might as well have a 3rd variant as well for other players, because that will mean that there are some times when we have like balance things that are a bit annoying, where like we can't make a node for a class in the starting area as good as we want, because that would mean that other classes would all be incentivized to go there and take it because it's like too powerful, if you know what I mean. So effectively with that, we can like balance the you know, because it's relatively close to get to the adjacent classes area.
All right, so if y'all don't know what he's talking about, I'm going to explain right now. So if we look at the passive tree for PoE 2, let's see, can we zoom in at all? All right, we can. Let's work our way down here. So this, I believe this whole centralized area right here, the beginning portion for each node. So depending on whatever class you are, it's going to adjust slightly, so that way when you're pathing, if you want to path a certain way, you're not wasting points. And then the same thing applies to when, so for instance, this is the int starting point. The int starting point is going to be for witches and for sorceresses. So if you're a witch, it's going to have certain nodes, and if you're a sorceress, it's going to have certain specific nodes as well. And then obviously if you're a third class, like the ranger over here, nodes are going to change. And it makes sense for them to do it like that, but again, that's only the starting area of the tree. Everything else is going to be static. That way, if you want to path to the mercenary side, or you want to path to the monk side, or whatever the case might be, you can still do that and make your own custom build. But they wanted to make sure that you weren't just wasting wasting points for the travel and everything like that. Let's jump back to the video.
Yeah, so effectively you can sort of just balance that so that it like kind of works a little bit better.
Can you explain how deaths in map work? Because there's been some confusion on why 6 portals, if you die you can't go back in, as well as experience penalty still being a thing. So we'll start with those two.
Yeah, so basically when you die in a map, you can't resurrect. We discussed this quite a lot, right? Because we were like, we've got 6 portals, we could have it so that you can revive 6 times like you did in PoE 1. But the thing we were really worried about is just compromising the combat. I mean, obviously there's a limited level of cheese, but it's still cheese on the boss as far as we were concerned. So the reason for 6 portals is it's still important that you're able to pull out 6 inventories worth of items from a map if you're by yourself, like you still want to be able to do that. And yet we also don't want to make it just one portal with unlimited uses, because once again, that limitation on like the amount of stuff you can pull out of a map, I think is also kind of one of those things that's important. And there's also a slightly more mundane reason, which like seems a bit silly, but all the map devices that we've already sold, those are microtransactions that we need to support going forward in the store, and all of those have 6 portals. We can't really change that, so that's kind of just like one of those things that we just kind of have to maintain backwards compatibility for that reason. At the end.
Now, to be fair, they could change it. It'd probably just be a pain. But 6 portals is fair. That's enough to pull out pretty much everything from a map, unless you're like juicing super hard. And I'm talking about when juice was like super high in PoE 1, which I don't know if the drops are going to be like that in PoE 2. I know they're making them more relevant. Like everything that drops is going to be a lot more relevant, because you want to be able to craft on the fly and get upgrades on the fly. So but let's go ahead and continue.
At the end of the day, the main thing that won out as far as is we just don't want to compromise the combat. We want to make sure that if you're going to kill a boss, it has to be like one life. You have to survive it. You actually have to properly kill it.
What about experience penalty when dying?
That's actually a very good question. It's still there right now, but it's not something I've like thought about honestly for like a little while now. So it's probably good that I have another conversation with Mark about it just to see whether we still need it. So we removed it from the campaign. The reason why I think I would still like it is because it's not really at the beginning of maps, but as you get towards the race towards 100, having death like set you back, so that you have to actually build somewhat defensively when you're like racing for 100, I think is kind of important. But I suppose the question is like, it may not be as necessary when you're talking early maps, right? Like it's really that from like 90 to 100 where it kind of starts to matter that the death penalty is there as a thing. So we could theoretically think about like, basically what I'm saying with that is like we could fiddle around with the equation for it a little bit, but yeah, the purpose of it really is to make sure that as you're coming towards the end, as you're getting to level 100, that like a mistake actually costs you something rather than just being like a nothing in the road, in order for that race to 100 to actually be meaningful. Because like if you can just grind your face into the wall and still not lose any experience and just like die, it's like you get to 100 but you died like 2,000 times. It's like, well, did you really achieve the same thing as the guy who didn't die at all? So that's kind of the reason why it exists.
What happens when you're going in a party play in maps, and what happens to the loot there in the loot split between the parties, as well as what happens if X player dies?
So number one, we have changed how the loot scaling works for party members. If you're talking about currency, right, obviously you want double the amount of currency. We've got 2 players because all players want to take currency. But this is also true for things like rings and amulets, because rings and amulets aren't kind of like specific to any one person, right? Like obviously the mods can make them that way, but everyone wants a ring, everyone wants an amulet if one drops. So effectively we also do plus 100% for things like that as well. But if you're talking about armors, well, there are 6 different armor types. And so if you look on average, you only need to increase the number of armors by 50% in order to be able to, wait, is it even 50%? It might be. I might be doing the math wrong here, but effectively there's an amount of armor increase that you need speed in order to kind of on average make it so that everyone's still getting the stuff they want, because certain players only want certain armor parts of the pie, right? For weapon types, there's even more weapon types, so the chance that two players are actually using the same weapon type is generally much lower. So effectively what that means is that we can not increase weapons by the same amount that we increase other stuff. So what that means is that the sum total of all of that means that the stuff on the ground from each player increases by some number like 28% if you actually look at it in raw drops, but the actual what makes up that 28% is like way more of the stuff you actually want and not as much of the garbage that you don't want. I guess it just goes to the general philosophy that we have of we're trying to not drop as many things, but make sure the things we do drop are more important and better as you go up. So that's kind of like the as I said, just part of that philosophy there.
Let's say you're two players playing and one player dies.
I'm pretty sure the rules for this are basically the same as what they were in PoE 1. Basically, if you've got temporary allocation on, then the allocation will disappear and then the loot will just become allocated to be free for all once the timer expires. Definitely should make it free for all once you die, even if it's permanent, I assume. I don't know if we've actually done that. It does work that way? In that case, it'll just work then. So it's just the same as in PoE 1 in this regard.
Last one has to do with trials. Now, we've only seen Sanctum and Ultimatum version. The questions are, what happens if one player dies, if two players goes in, and the other one is the reward system there as well, I guess.
Generally speaking, of course, when we're doing things like this, when you're paying party play with a thing like Sanctum, to be technical, the map owner, but effectively the person who paid the cost, the person who put the key in, they're the person who kind of gets like the progress. So they usually get to be the one who decides what actions to take and what rooms to go to. I believe though that if you want to go through and ascend, that there are you can both do the ascendancy, but I believe that the items that come from like key, the chests and stuff like that, they belong to the person who paid the cost of the coin that they used to enter, as my understanding of that. I could be wrong about this, but I think that's correct. I'm sorry about this. I don't have like completely clear.
See, and if that's the case, though, that kind of de-incentivizes people to do any kind of party play when it comes to the trials. That kind of makes me a little sad, because then it's what they should have done is made separate loot pools in the treasure chests and stuff like that. At least in those specific mechanics, it would make more sense. Then you can actually incentivize people to go in together. Maybe find a way for people to split cost on the coin. I don't know if that's how, if there's a way to do that. But, there's a lot of things they could have done that could have made it a lot more friendly for when you want to play with a group or go through things with a group.
Information about some of that stuff. That's one of those things that Mark tends to be often addressing.
Since we're talking about loot, there is one question that people had related to loot due to some early access footage we've seen where there's like tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, advanced gear, etc. So I was hoping you could break down what that's referencing.
Yeah, so effectively, when you get Magic Find gear, so like increased chance of rarity, we wanted to try and make it so that the gear that you get from that is better, and not just in the way of just getting more rares. I mean, it does do that as well, don't get me wrong, you're still getting more rares, more uniques and so on, but we wanted to make it so that you could scale rarity by a huge amount. The way we do that is there's 5, and I don't know whether Rishi will be unhappy about me spoiling the exact inner workings of this, but there are 5 tiers to start with that you can't see that change anything, because those don't change anything about unidentified items, but they do change the percentage chances that you get certain things. For example, chances to upgrade currency to higher types of currency. You're getting the chances of not spawning items with base types that are lower level than what you would need. So effectively sort of clamping the base types that you're going to get into a smaller range at the top, and these kind of things, while also increasing magic and rare and uniques and stuff like that. Those tiers start to open up what types of uniques can go into the pool. And to be clear here, there's always a chance that you can upgrade through these tiers regardless of how much Magic Find you have, right? You don't need Magic Find to get this. It's just that Magic Find is effectively increasing the chance that you upgrade through them. A way you can make drops in an action RPG feel good is just by dropping tons of crap on the ground. But ideally, we can actually make it so that you don't have to worry about it in the first place. And so you need to find a way to give people the hit of dopamine without having to just do that by literally covering the screen. But it's ideally you get that by the value of the items. That the value of that stuff is really good. And I suppose on some level, item filters are even sort of achieving that anyway.
Since you bring up the concept of loot filters, official confirmation loot filters sounds like are supported.
Yeah. So they're supported in exactly the same way they were in PoE 1. There's no reason for us to drop support for something like that. A lot of people have filters that highlight certain things that might be good for various reasons. But we try to keep things relatively visually clean, and also we don't want to try to make too many value judgments for the player about what is important or not. So therefore we try to not do too much of that stuff. But obviously players come up with their own schemes for what they think is important.
It seems like there's been more and more an emphasis on exploration and world building.
We really want to make sure that we're doing better than what we had in PoE 1 with regard to story. A lot of people get through PoE 1 and they never even realize what it is, what the story even was. There was kind of a moment when we realized that people actually didn't realize how much content there was in the game. People would like walk past things, they wouldn't know that maps contain stuff. There is stuff out there for them to find. They're just not actually finding it. They don't know that it's there. So the icon on the map thing was just like a really good step towards actually making it so that you realize, oh, you know what? This is actually a game where if I explore, I will be rewarded. And there's been quite a lot of other things like that we've done as well, like tweak the random level generator to make it so that you've got things like where when you come to dead ends, we try to make sure that there's stuff in dead ends for you to find. Every area we try to have like 2, in some cases there might even be 3, like sort of just like handmade like little things you can find. One of the things that I'm keen to do is to have a larger pool of these kinds of things in the game. You just want so like every time you go through the campaign, you just get a feeling of like, oh, there's stuff here I haven't noticed before, there's stuff there I haven't, like just little things. And I think those little things really contribute. So I think that feeling of just like, just finding random stuff is really important, and we want to do that as much as we can.
PoE 2 is focused a lot on new player experience, eliminating a lot of requirements for going to third-party tools or third-party sites. And a commonly asked question is that if we're going to be able to search and look up, say, monsters and their abilities in-game, sort of like a Necronomicon or Wiki in-game.
This is something that I'd be super keen to do, especially because some of the monster models are so awesome. You don't really get to appreciate them from game camera perspective. Like every weekend, my friends come over and I like to show them like, hey, here's what we've been doing on PoE 2 recently. But the thing is, I've got the tools. I can like open up what's called the asset viewer and like, hey, look at this cool monster, and like show them close up and like, hey, look at. And there's also the funny things. Like the animators make all these idle animations for the monsters that you basically never see, because obviously you never see a monster not attacking you. So one day, and we don't have this in the game right now, but one day I am very keen to make an actual sort of bestiary of like, here's all the monsters in the game, but like we can actually see the model and like appreciate it a little bit, and that would be a great opportunity to be able to show various abilities and things like that. It would be sort of handy, I think, for people who are wanting to play.
So the way that they're working it, it's supposed to be the items that drop is supposed to be a lot better, and they're not supposed to be dropping nearly as much stuff. That's also why they've also increased the currency drop rates. So by the end of Act 1, most people that played some of the beta stuff have said, by the end of Act 1, they had multiple exalts. They were able to like craft their gear, and this, that's going to be kind of the basis that they're going for, is they want you to use that currency to build your character up. Obviously, we can still use it to trade and everything like that, and we will have the auction house kind of thing, the currency auction house that was put in place for the settlers. So there's gonna be a lot of that, but it's supposed to be that the items dropped are much better for you. Yeah, definitely. And then of course later on, if you get really good items, or you make really good items, because obviously there's gonna be a heavy emphasis on crafting your own items later on, at least in my personal opinion, because they've done a lot more focus on essences. So the essences aren't as random anymore, I guess you would say. It has a one stat. Yeah. So it has one stat that it focuses on. So like if it's like movement speed, or a speed modifier, you slam it, and for boots it's going to be movement speed every single time. And so you can get two guaranteed rolls by using essences. So one will be from white to magic, and then from magic to rare. They've changed the alchemy orb, so they no longer roll from 4 to 6 mods or 3 to 6 mods. It now rolls 4 mods specifically, so that way you still use exalts. Two times, same-ish, roll mods, prefix. So let's say for instance, you grab anything, a pair of boots, a pair of gloves, a body armor. We'll go with a body armor. That's probably the easiest one. So let's say you do that, and then you use a fire essence to roll a modifier on that piece of armor. More than likely, it's only going to have fire res to pull from. So then it will give you a tier of fire res related to the level of the essence as well. And so there's like I said, there's gonna be some that are gonna be magical and some that are gonna be rare. And then from there, if you wanted to, you could slam a second high res. Because of course the rare ones are going to be higher tier, onto the armor, which will give you a second res, so you could do lightning res or whatever the case might be. Does that answer the question, or are you asking something else? I genuinely want to answer this question for you. All right, all right. And we can take a look at my little video if you want after we get done with this one. My video is pretty short. Like I said, I condensed down everything to make it real easy to understand for anybody who's a beginner. I know when I first started playing PoE, a lot of this stuff kind of went over my head right away, but then like once I got into it, I really understood it. I was really enjoyed like number crunching and stuff when I was playing like D2 and stuff. Kind of, yeah. So like we can actually here. I'll actually show you. Give me 1 second. I'm gonna pull up my video real quick. And we're not. I'm just gonna like fast forward to a certain spot on it. We're not gonna sit here and watch my video. Let's see. Go over there. Videos. This one. Yep. Okay, so let me come over here, open it in a new tab so we can get back to how's it going, guys and gals. This is Elderville coming back at you with the latest. All right, and let's move to the essence spot because I literally cover everything as far as items go. But essences, okay. Adding an extra socket past an item's limit, re-rolling half the mods on an item, or nothing to start working. Of course, there's totally okay. So if we look at the essence of haste, upgrade a normal item to a magic item with 1 speed modifier. So it's no longer like different sets of modifiers. It's literally going to be a specialized modifier. Yeah, as far as running it, I'm not sure what the minimum requirements are yet. They should have that out somewhere though. Maybe I can see if I can find it real quick. Let me see. Pathofexile 2 minimum requirements. Okay, so says right here, Pathofexile 2 minimum requirements would be CPU 4-core, RAM 8 gigs, video card NVIDIA GeForce 960 or ATI Radeon 470, dedicated video RAM. Obviously, this would be like the lowest. And then recommended requirements is 16 gigs of RAM, 8 cores, 2060 or 5600. Dedicated video RAM, etc. So those are the minimum requirements. If you fall within those specs, you should be fine to play it. So and then I'm not sure if you've already checked. Yeah, so like I said, this is the minimum up here, but down here it's you know, I got you. And then I don't know if you've checked on Pathofexile or not. I'm not sure how much you've spent on the game itself, like your support. But if you spent up to at least $480, you get a free key into early access. If not, then you'd have to pay $30 or buy one of the new PoE 2 supporter packs, depending on how much you want to spend. And then anybody who has spent the money, it's supposed to show you, like you go to this fact right here and you can actually see if you have early access. Mine still says no. Actually, no, it's a Pathofexile stream client key. This key is available to claim. Okay, so I guess I just got my email then. Okay, so I might be able to get my key. Cool. Well, I just got my key, so okay. So if you have not spent a whole lot, there are tons of people on Twitter that will be giving out keys and whatnot. But basically, you can go to the FAQ and you can check to see what your lifetime purchases are. You can check all that stuff. It gives you all the rundown there. If you'd like to buy a supporter pack, you can buy the pack. So microtransactions. Let me see where the supporter pack's at. Right here. And so you can buy a $30 supporter pack to just get access. Or you can buy any one of these packs that'll give you a key. If you get down to the lower packs, it actually gives you a key plus an extra key. But again, there's lots of people that are giving away keys on Twitter. You just have to go and follow, like, whatever, etc. I've actually been, if you go follow me, you'll see that I've been reposting people that have been doing that because I want, people that, yeah, full lifetime purchase. So since the game started, if you spent at least $480, you get a free key. And so you can check by going and clicking in the FAQ. Yeah, full lifetime. Like since you started playing the game, if you spent 480, you'll get a key for free. Okay, yeah. So then you'd have to buy at least, so either you can buy the $30 pack right here, which is just the key, and gives you extended digital soundtrack download and 300 points. So you're still getting points and everything like that. Or you can buy one of the support packs, which starts at 60. Or again, like I said, go to Twitter. There are a ton of people. So if I go to my Twitter and I go to my page, there's a whole bunch of people that have been posting. So this guy has like 2 keys to give away. There's a whole bunch of people that are posting though that are giving away keys. Ziz is giving away keys. Everybody's getting extra keys because a lot of people are buying those giant packs. I mean, I would love to buy one of these big packs myself, but I'm actually currently not working myself, so yeah, there's that. Hey man, I mean, honestly, if you just go on there, it's a lot of people are giving away keys for free. Like there are so many people that are buying the supporter packs, and they, I mean, hey, you never know. There, like I said, there's tons of people without even like a lot of followers, like myself. I mean, if I buy one of the packs, I'll probably have some keys to give away myself. But there's a lot of people out there that don't have a lot of followers that are giving out keys. I highly recommend, at least going and trying. I mean, there's nothing, what is it gonna hurt just to follow, like, and a comment or something. I'm just saying. I'm just saying. Right, I got Pathofexile 2. Can't play it yet, but I'm like super excited. Got my key in. Now I feel like now I'm not stressing as much about it. I was stressing because it kept saying that I didn't have access. But hey, let's continue checking out the information. There ain't nothing wrong with having information about the game. So let's check out the rest of this interview. If you want to continue with me, of course. I do appreciate you coming by, David. I really haven't seen you in forever. I'm so happy to actually see you. Do you follow me on Twitter? I'm gonna be reposting anybody who has keys, and if I end up having some keys, I'll definitely post on there too. Well, just give me a follow. You don't need to do anything else, man. Don't comment or nothing like that. Just give me a follow, so that way if I post something, or I can even DM you, if somebody's giving out keys, etc. Because like I said, there's so many creators giving out keys right now. Like, people are giving out 5 keys. Some people have 6 keys to give out. It's crazy. Like the game PoE 2 itself has blown up to an extent that it's insane, my friend. It's crazy. But yeah, Eldervo, I mean, that's I'm on every social. It's gonna be the same name for me, my guy. You can find me anywhere with that name. Obviously it's slightly different for YouTube because I have Eldervo's domain, but hey, let's check out the rest of this interview, if you want to still hang out.
Play specters, and to be able to have a big list of all that stuff. So I think that'll be a really cool thing to do one day.
Speaking of animations, I'm going to go off script here from our list already and ask you about the cinematic, because it's kind of the first full major cinematic that has really been revealed so far. So was it difficult doing your first cinematic, and did you guys get the result and the response you were really hoping for?
Yes, it was definitely very hard. I mean, obviously we've never done anything like that before. I mean, I wrote it myself, and there was a New Zealand company who we commissioned to kind of to work on it. So that was certainly they did a really good job. Right? Like it's really awesome. I was really concerned, right? Because obviously the comparison is to Blizzard and all the crazy cinematics like that. And to be honest, the quality of the animation is not what Blizzard does, right? Like, I mean, they we do a lot of things in order to make it so that it is I want the content to be really awesome, but it's in terms of just the raw amount of millions of dollars that they probably spend on their cinematics, right? We're not at that level. So we're not there. But I was really hoping that you could get a feeling of the world and the kind of I want to make sure that people understand right from the word go that there is a brutality here, and we're not sort of pulling any punches when it comes to the kind of things you can expect in the game. So that was kind of what I was going for. The thing that I actually based it on is I was thinking a lot about the Riddick movies, the classic a team of guys go in all overconfident and then they get picked off one by one. That's kind of what I was imagining. I was okay, how are we going to do this? But it also has that sort of idea of the flip of the team you're following are the bad guys, but you kind of think of them as but they're kind of yet the main protagonists, and it's you get that flip at the end where you realize that the bad guy hunting them all is actually the good guy. So I was pretty happy with that one as well.
I am a notable Blight enjoyer, so
yeah.
I'm going to ask, can we hope? Can you tease me with anything? Give me some hopium copium that maybe Blight can come to Pathofexile too at some point here.
Well, I will say this: Blight is a relatively easy league to add compared to some others. So when we're looking at leagues of here are some leagues that we can put in relatively easily, that is one of the ones that would be relatively simple for us to do. Obviously, one of the reward system it previously had has now been moved to a different thing, which means that.
All right, David, I appreciate that. Let me take a look, because that is weird. I didn't think it would. I don't think I have my stuff on private either. Let's see. It says you did follow me. That's cool. I will. I'll send you anything that I get. I'll let you know if there's any new things coming out. People with keys, etc. If I have some keys, I'll let you know too. All I'm gonna probably end up doing is making a video on YouTube and having people go and that sort of thing. But thank you for the follow. I don't know how to pronounce. I'm gonna say Angela because that's the end. That's the end of the name right there. Thank you for the follow, Angela. I appreciate it very much. Hope you're doing well today. Let's continue with this interview and see what else they got to say.
And we've got ideas for what we can do about that. But we've got monsters we can use for it. We've actually got a bunch of environment art from Act 5 that would suit Blight perfectly well.
So I'm just hearing Blight login. That's what I'm hearing when you're saying.
PoE 2 looks like there's a significant amount of ways to increase power on maps. How does the juicing compare to PoE 1 for endgame mapping? Now, we saw a lot of it in the reveal, but could you elaborate on it?
So first things first, we definitely want to make sure that juicing is still a thing. But I don't know that you'll be able to get to quite the level that you can get in PoE 1. It's a little bit hard to say because, the way that this can go down, I mean, look, we think we can know, all the things, but you never really quite know exactly how it goes until you get, masses of players, because trade is a huge part of the economy for how juicing works. And the juice is substantial if you can get everything all at the same time. The question is, can you do that every map, or can you do that only some of the time? And I honestly can't say until the trade sort of starts to happen. It is still substantial. Like, you still need to feel like a god. So
I guess the follow-up question would be, what are the plans to manage severe increase in power creep moving forward, so you don't end up in that category where you're one-shotting the entire screen?
I mean, look, PoE1 obviously did get pretty crazy, but at the same time, like, we had a lot of years where things kind of weren't like that. And I
100%. 100% they're going to be adding stuff, because so as far as juicing goes, what they did is, you remember the Awakened Sextons and stuff like that, right, David? That you could put on your Void Stones and whatnot. Okay, so they took tablets, and what they did is they made it to where you can add modifiers to the area of maps around the whole thing. And so you throw the tablets in there, and it applies just like the Awakened Sextants used to. But the tablets are related to the content that you want to run. So there's like Breach tablets, Expedition tablets, what's the other one? Delirium tablets, etc. And then Delirium itself, the items that drop from Delirium, you can actually use those to add Delirium directly to your maps. And on top of that, like you basically make it like, I think I'm not gonna say perfect, but it's gonna be like, I think it ends up being like perma, like you would if you had like a Delirium orb and you put it on a map kind of thing, as far as I can tell. Now that's kind of what it looks like, but I could be wrong. It could just be, you know, you get a mirror of Delirium, but you also add more mods for those types of things. So the tablets, and then you can use those directly on the waystones that you use to get to the maps. Yeah, I've been getting a lot of them recently. It's slightly upsetting, but I mean, it is what it is. You just gotta deal with them as they come through. I've been added on Discord. I remember once I got added on Discord and got a bunch of messages, and I went and I found the actual streamer to the person that they were imitating, and I was like, "Hey, you got somebody imitating you on Discord. They have this account name." I just like, no, that's okay. I don't have you know, I've even gotten messages like, oh, your YouTube videos are, you know, they could be doing so much better. Let me help you with the SEO and this, that, and the other. And I'm just like, you know, and it's so random, man. It's crazy out there with the bots and all that stuff.
I think that effectively, I believe we can still maintain that. Our numbers don't scale as fast as some games do, and they don't go quite as exponential, which means that we're not going to have to be worrying about trillions of damage or anything like that. You know, having, you know, and like, I mean, it can be.
I gotta say though, there's a lot of jabs in here going straight for like D4, D3, just going for the throat with some of these comments. I gotta say.
So I don't think we're going to have to ever do a number squish or anything like that. Like, we've never really felt like the need to worry about that. There are certain people in the company who just, you know, are just very careful about stuff. So I mentioned Rishi a couple of times. Like, you know, me and Mark are often the ones being like, no, numbers high, and he's like, no, keep them low, keep them low. So
yeah, no, it makes me sad because PoE 2 is literally going to be what I was hoping D4 was going to be, which is going to be the new standard. PoE 2 is going to be the new standard for ARPGs. D4 has gotten better from when it was released, but that's, you know, like if it wasn't a, you know, if I didn't have to purchase the game, it might have been a lot more worthwhile. If it was like a free release like PoE or something like that, and they had microtransactions, it would have been a lot more worthwhile in my personal opinion. But because they're doing such a large cash grab with, thank you for the follow, Delight, much appreciated. Because they're doing such a large cash grab, it's just insane. You know, they did the cash grab with the game itself first, and then another cash grab with the expansion, and then all of the MTX is beautiful, don't get me wrong, but man, they are raking in money when it comes to MTX and stuff like that. And I was talking with my friend, and like, Path of Exile, GGG, they want those numbers. Don't get me wrong, they really want those numbers too. But their focus is the game. I mean, but MTX doesn't hurt anything. MTX doesn't make you a better player. It doesn't make you win anymore, etc. You know what I mean? If you don't want to buy it, you don't have to buy it. And on top of that, in PoE 2, the actual regular armors and stuff like that are looking a lot better. And PoE 2 is 100% going to be the new standard for ARPGs. Now, with that said, I'm not saying that they didn't take inspiration from a lot of different things. There are a lot of interactions that happen mechanically that you can be like, oh, well, that was taken from this game, that was taken from this game. Obviously, a lot of them link back to other games or older games, but you know, some of them were even like direct copies of PoE 1 type stuff that they're kind of revamping. MTX, you'll be able to use all your MTX from PoE 1. Anything that you can use. Obviously, there are going to be certain things that you can't, because certain things won't exist in PoE 2, and vice versa. So, like, if you buy stuff for PoE 2, let's say, like, for the mercenary who uses the crossbow, obviously there's no crossbows in PoE 1, so you wouldn't be able to use that piece there, but everything's going to be back and forth. Yeah, so if Toxic Rain exists, which I think it does, but if Toxic Rain exists, they'll be in, you know, you'll be able to use that MTX.
I think together with that, we kind of come to some kind of medium ground where we don't get things too out of control.
Can we get any information related to Righteous Fire or where that is going? I was kind of wanting to follow up with that.
So it's not an early access right now because it's on a class that is not. It's one of the skills for a class that's not going to be an EA. So you get that a little bit later.
Significantly changed or
it is very it is very different.
Okay.
But it's still fundamentally, you know, it's still fundamentally a thing where you're lighting yourself on fire and there's fire damage around you and that kind of stuff, right? It's just that, you know, like the exact mechanics from a stat point of view. Like,
sure.
If you looked at it on the screen, you'd be like, oh yeah, that's Righteous Fire. But if you look at the stats, it's like works quite differently.
Bricking the Atlas. Yes, you can. If you die in a map, you can't do it again. What happens when you brick? If you brick all the star
around?
maps?
Yeah. So we have.
I hear you, David. I hear you. And like I said, I mean, you know, who knows? Maybe you'll get a key and you'll be able to just play and chill out. I plan on playing like every class. I'm gonna start with Monk though. I actually have my plan in one of my videos. But I'm gonna start as Monk. I'm gonna focus on CC and that sort of stuff. Thank you for the follow, Bit. Much appreciated. Hope you're having a great one. But I'm gonna focus on Monk, elemental damage, CCs. And then using stuff from other classes like cast on shock, cast on freeze, etc. And that's gonna be kind of what I'm gonna work on and see how that works. But I plan on playing all of them. I mean, I'm gonna play all of them, and then eventually, of course, I'll start coming out with build guides. I think like week 1 or 2, like after the whole week's done and after I've played for a good chunk of time, because I'm planning on, like, when it launches, I'm planning on sitting down and playing. Obviously the servers might not be able to handle everybody who's going to be playing, so we'll see. Which 2? Hey, you want to look at the characters? Let's look at the characters. Give me 1 second.
and delve.
All right, let's jump to where the character classes are. Classes.
Now, early access will initially have 6 classes available. Let's have a look at them. The Monk is a fast and furious melee fighter. He dashes in and out of combat and has mechanics that involve building up and keeping momentum. Like all classes in PoE 2, you'll want to use a wide variety of skills to mix and match different combos. To get new skills, you will first need to find skill gems. Using a skill gem will open the gem cutting menu, which shows all the active skills available in PoE 2. You can choose an existing skill to level up, or choose to engrave a new one. Since this is a level 7 skill gem, even if you pick a new skill, it will immediately be level 7, so there's no harm in trying out something new. The Monk primarily uses the quarterstaff. There are 3 schools of martial arts: lightning, ice, and wind. But don't think you have to stick to just one. The best combos are going to involve mixing elements of all 3. Let's try Killing Palm. Like many monk skills, this can be used to quickly take advantage of a specific situation. If there's an enemy on low life, you can use Killing Palm to dash to them and kill them instantly. This will provide a power charge. Then we can use a different...
Yes, it's a skill tab, but the gems themselves are skills. So you get uncut skill gems, and then you can choose which one you want to get instead of having to purchase them from a vendor. And you can purchase whichever ones you want. It's not specific, like they have them broken down by class, but at the same time, if you want a Sorc skill on a monk, you can do that. And then same thing for support skills. There's going to be like a suggested or recommended set of support skills that you can use your gem for, or you can look at all the ones that actually work with your skill.
different skill to consume that power charge for a much more devastating attack. The Monk also has powerful combo skills. Tempest Bell, for example, is a skill that places a giant resonating bell. Hitting the bell causes it to ring, dealing damage to all enemies around it. You can also do things like freeze or shock the bell, which will add elemental damage to the strikes. The Monk also has a variety of abilities to empower his staff. If an enemy is close to being stunned, you can use staggering.
Yeah, 100%. You're not prevented from anything. It's just they have it broken down in the screen so you can see what skills are available. And even though they have it under classes, it's technically the skills are related to the type of weapon that you're holding. So quarterstaff skills are based off of those monk skills, basically.
Palm to punch them down. After that, any attack you do will shoot out wind projectiles. There are 21 active skills for quarterstaves, so this just scratches the surface of the options that you have. By endgame, you'll be dashing from pack to pack, spewing projectiles and obliterating screens of enemies with huge combo attacks. Now, if you like a style of melee that's...
Yeah, exactly. And all of them are going to be more weapon specific. Yeah.
It's a little slower, but hits much harder than the warrior is for you. He pounds the ground with big chunky attacks and can shrug off the hits of small enemies with large amounts of armor. Even though the mace slams are slow, you never lose control. Longer attacks can be retargeted as you go, and if you find yourself committed to a long attack, you can dodge roll out of it at any time. Among the skill option for maces, you will find a variety of slams, fire attacks, war cries, and shield skills. Here, I'm going to slam the ground, rending it apart with lines of fire. Any slam skill will then cause these fissures to erupt with lava. I can even run through them with a skill like Stampede to do huge amounts of damage. The warrior can also use war cries, which can empower your next skill. Seismic Cry, for example, will double any slams from your next attack. The Stampede counts as a slam, so I can double that for even more craziness. If you want to go a little faster and be a little more defensive, equip a shield. In PoE 2, you can raise your shield at any time to block all damage from the front, even spells. While holding up your shield, your stun meter will build as you take damage, so be careful. If it reaches 100%, your stance will break and you will be vulnerable.
Yeah, all damage, but yeah, as you saw, if you take too much, you get stunned and you're kind of dead. Some enemies also have unblockable attacks, which are indicated by this red flash.
If you see one of these coming, make sure to dodge out of the way. Using a shield also gives you access to shield skills like Shield Charge, which allows you to charge towards enemies and stun them. While charging, you're also blocking the whole time, so you have full damage immunity from the front. The warrior also has access to totems.
It definitely can, and honestly, like, it probably just that mechanic alone adds to group play, because then you can have somebody tanking up front and blocking stuff while y'all are like bombing from the back and that sort of thing.
Some totems have built-in abilities like Shockwave Totem, which can be placed to stun nearby enemies and trigger aftershocks like those from the earthquake. But you can also get Ancestral Warrior Totems, which allow you to use any slam skill
Exactly.
in your repertoire. This is a meta skill, which means that it's a skill you can put other skills into. I can take a slam like Sunder and socket it into my Ancestral Warrior Totem. Now when I summon him, he'll sit there and slam the monsters from a distance. There are 20 active skills for maces, so there's a lot more to try out, but by endgame you're going to be dropping hammers from the sky, leaping fearlessly into combat, and separating the very earth you stand on. Time for some ranged attacks. The ranger is primarily about the bow, but we wanted to make sure that she feels agile as well.
You have a lot of friends gonna play PoE 2, or?
In PoE 2 you can shoot while moving. Combined with all the skills the ranger has that allow you to jump around, you'll have a lot.
Also, don't forget, I mean, just because gotcha. Just because it's, the warrior using the shield doesn't mean only warrior can use shield. You can use any character for shield. And again, you can use war cries on different characters and all sorts of stuff like that. So, I gotcha.
Of mobility and combat. Bow skills have a variety of lightning, poison, ice, and...
So we can see all the bow skills right here. Or most of the bow skills, I think. See, that's what, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. I think there's more than 18, but maybe there's not. I don't know. But I don't see Toxic Rain on here.
And physical attacks. Lightning attacks bounce around between targets. You can also stick lightning arrows in the ground.
Yeah, Toxic Growth, though, it actually, they show it right now. It like throws out the pods. But yeah, it probably would be the same as far as that. Maybe they'll change the MTX over to it.
Which explode when hit by the bouncers, or electrocute enemies to take them out of combat. Ice attacks allow you to slow and freeze enemies to keep them away from you. Using poison, not only can you slowly damage your enemies from afar, but also grow some interesting plants.
Yeah, it's the one right there. You see the pods?
With 21 bow skills and all the mobility and combo tools the ranger has, you can take advantage of every situation. By endgame, you'll be creating hundreds of arrows, be they falling from the sky, bouncing around between enemies, or spraying out of tornadoes. You might have noticed in the bottom left of the screen that the flask slots look a little different. In PoE 2, you have one dedicated life flask slot and one mana flask slot. Flasks gain charges as you kill enemies, and typically allow you to heal 6 or 7 times if they're full.
Well, the toxic pods, you can pop them, so it's more for like, you slow them, lay down the pods, and then blow them up to cause more damage. There's going to be a lot more interaction between skills and stuff like that.
But that's not the only thing you can use charges for. Charms are a new item type that will automatically defend you from various debuffs or damage types. Having trouble with getting frozen? Equip a Thawing Charm. When it's fully charged, it will make you immune to freeze for 3 seconds if you get frozen. To recharge them, just kill more monsters. You can gain more slots for charms by upgrading your belt.
So I keep looking at
Immune
this
to
'cause I'm
freeze
like,
for 3
how
seconds
is it an
if you get
upgraded
frozen.
belt? Let's see.
To recharge them, just kill more monsters.
Did it actually say? Okay, so it says charm slots on it. All right. +1 to charm slots. Okay.
You can gain more slots for charms by upgrading your belt. The mercenary wields a crossbow that can be loaded with different ammo types, offering versatility, power, and mobility. All classes in Pathofexile 2 can be controlled with WASD, which makes this class play exactly like a shooter. For the crossbow, you will find skills that work like shotguns,
Yeah.
sniper rifles, assault rifles, and even grenade launchers.
What? Freaking out about the mercenary? WASD? Yep, WASD and PoE. Well, in PoE 2. It won't be in PoE 1.
But not only that, there are a wide variety of more interesting elemental ammos too. It's very fast to switch between ammo types, so long as you already have them loaded,
just giving you a hard
which makes the
time, brother.
mercenary able to combo abilities together for devastating effect. Use Glacial Bolt to create walls of ice to separate enemies, then switch to Fragmentation rounds to explode the ice, dealing massive AoE damage. If I come across an armored enemy, I could use Armor Piercing rounds to break their armor, and then High Velocity rounds to take them down. Or perhaps I could fire a gas grenade to poison enemies before detonating the cloud with an explosive shot for massive damage. If you want to call in some suppressing fire, you can summon artillery ballistas. These have a minimum range, so you'll want to prepare your position carefully before moving in. There are 22 active skills for crossbows. By endgame, you'll be calling destruction down from the sky as you litter the battlefield with grenades and pepper your enemies with your automatic shotgun. If you're looking to take a backseat and let your minions do the work, then the Witch should be your choice. She can call forth hordes of undead monsters to fight for her, while casting powerful chaos spells that debilitate her enemies. Occult skills are some of the most varied in the game, with skeletons, noxious spells, specialty minions, curses, and sacrificial magic. Before we talk about minions, we'll have to talk about a new resource in Pathofexile 2 called
Possibly.
Spirit. This is a spirit gem, which allows you to pick from a range of persistent skills. All classes have a variety of these skills which can add some very interesting effects, like Arctic Armor, which does cold damage to enemies that hit you, or Raging Spirits, which summon fiery skulls each time you cast a fire spell. For the Witch though, we'll want to be using our spirit to create permanent minions. These minions will be revived automatically when they die, so you don't have to worry about resummoning them all the time. Here I'm using the skill screen to allocate which minions I would like in my horde. You can see the spirit cost of each one. Skeletal warriors are cheap but weak, useful for tanking damage and distracting enemies. But I want more heavy hitters in my army, so I'm going to unsummon some warriors and instead add skeletal arsonists. Permanent minions come with special active abilities called commands.
Make it back in, David. 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 Where, oh, where is that coming from? Have all of these closed. What's going on here? I know it's it was going through the browser audio, but I can't find my where it's coming from. Give me 1 second. Let me try closing that. I think that fixed it. Okay, give me 1 second. A possibility. I don't know the list of. Okay, where were we? We were here.
Skills. You can order these guys to detonate your own minions for even more damage and area of effect. If you want a bigger army, you'll need a scepter. This new weapon type is imbued with even more spirit, allowing you to summon even more friends. And if you want an even bigger army than that, you can take advantage of corpses to summon true hordes of minions. But what can a witch do while her army is at work? Well, she has a range of chaos spells to spread disease amongst your enemies, or bone skills to impale them. Or, you know, you could curse them to make them weaker so your horde can take them down. There are 25 active occult skills. By the endgame, you will be the leader of a fearsome army of the dead, consuming everything in its path. The sorceress bends the elements to her will, using them to unleash devastation on her foes. This classic spellcaster weaves a flurry of elemental magic from afar. The elemental skills have everything you might expect and more. Fireballs, icy explosions, lightning storms, you get the idea. Each spell is unique and has many different ways to build and combo with others, even between different elements. For example, Flame Wall conjures a burning line that not only damages enemies, but also empowers all projectiles that pass through it. If you place a wall and fire lightning sparks through it, they'll gain extra fire damage. It's a good idea to take advantage of the ability to automatically swap weapons when you use certain skills. Having a special staff with bonuses to fire skills and another with bonuses to lightning skills can really power up a combo like this. The sorceress can also take advantage of powerful trigger gems. For example, you could grab the Cast and Ignite gem and use it with Firestorm. As you ignite enemies, a counter will go up in the top left corner. When it's full, a Firestorm will automatically be cast at the enemy that was ignited. There are 25 active elemental skills. By endgame, you'll be firing off projectiles left and right as you rain down elemental storms on your foes. Now, those are the characters that will be available.
Alright, so which character were you saying were the same? Or similar? Well, that's all that's gonna be in early access. The other 6 classes are still getting worked on. So anything that you've seen previously, it might change. Just FYI.
You have the ability to effectively restart your atlas. If you completely cut yourself off, you can do that. I don't remember what way it is to do that, but it certainly came up when we were first talking about it. There just has to be some way to allow you to effectively restart your atlas from scratch if you need to. So there's 4 connections to the starting point. So you'd have to die 4 times in a row in order for that to happen to you, and then if that happens, it'll automatically re-roll.
So as far as that goes, let's see. So we can look at the classes here. I had to cheat a little bit because see, you can't actually click them, but so there's the assassin, the druid, the gladiator. Of course, we have the warrior, the sorceress, the ranger, the monk, the mercenary, the witch. We have the hunter or huntress, the marauder, and the templar. It's so the way the atlas works is you know how delve works, right? Like it's infinitely expanding. So that's how the new atlas is gonna work. But if you die in a map, if you fail the map, you can no longer go to that section of it. And so, look. Oh yeah. But like, so this is a ziggurat. This is where you start. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4 different ways you can go. If you fail one of them, you can go a different route. But again, if you block yourself from progressing, you know, it can be really hard. Now, if you fail like a bunch of maps, you can literally block yourself from a whole section of map, and you would literally have to go around a whole different route. No, that's not how that works. Everybody's atlas is completely different. You get your own atlas seed and everything like that. And then running the region doesn't matter. The regions change as you continue forward. It's infinite. So as you move around, there's going to be more towers, there's going to be more areas, the terrain changes, etc. It's literally infinite. There's no like end to the maps or anything like that.
The atlas, so you can kind of just try again immediately. But yeah, hopefully not too many players have to do that and run into that issue. The web of connections is dense enough that usually there'll be some other way around to get to something that you want. But bear in mind, there won't be too many, right? Like if you then die in another one of the entrances to get to some piece of content, that could definitely cut you off. So you know there are some consequences for death.
Speaking of the map, I got just a couple of questions related to the map. One is when we're talking about you know, bricking the map and not being able to go to certain areas if you fail too many. Does this account for like bosses too? For instance, like pinnacle bosses, and are they linked together where you fail the maps around it, you cannot go do the boss now?
Yeah. The cities with the Uber bosses, those are extra special because if you fail one of those, if you fail to kill the lieutenant, then the boss will disappear from the Uber boss will disappear from the center of the city as well. So those ones are like you really have to be able to do those fights, and it will be quite challenging. That's for like the ultra pinnacle content, like that 7th system, which has the I don't want to say the name because we didn't spoil it, but that pinnacle boss encounter.
Okay, so speaking of pinnacle boss encounters, I hear there's what you said, tier 1 through 4, correct?
So you're talking about the trees at the end where you add the difficulty. Yes, exactly. There's 4 tiers. Yes, that's correct.
So beyond
Oh, PoE 1 is though they're trying to make it to where, you know, if you die, you're gonna know that it was your own fault for a mistake you made, getting yourself into a corner, etc. But we'll definitely see it, 100%.
On that, can you then modify the bosses themselves? Are the bosses static and you modify on your tree only, or are the bosses almost like maps? You know how you can modify like invites, for instance, from PoE 1? So can you further modify these?
So generally speaking, not. So I'm pretty sure the Breachstone can't get mods. What I'll say is, in general, like it's not like it isn't the same for every league. Like for each league, we can decide what we want to do there. But generally speaking, for those 4 in-game things, the main thing you're going to be doing is modifying the difficulty using the tree like that. And that difficulty scaling does introduce things like, you know, it can even modify things like how skills work and like, you know, the number of minions that a boss might summon and things like that. Like there's all sorts of stuff like that. But it isn't random what you're doing there on the tree. So for the pinnacles, it really is just kind of mostly just that difficulty change.
So another question I was kind of wondering when I was looking at the map, I noticed you use the example of like the paradise, for instance, you get the bonus experience, and that is obviously on the beach because it's tropical. So since the biomes are determining maps, do these unique maps also have drops associated with them? Essentially where I'm going with this is, are certain biomes going to help you target farm certain types of items?
Absolutely, and we want to do even more than just what you were saying with the unique maps. Like we have just certain like this map has got this theme, and therefore it can drop this more of this item and stuff like that. This is one of the great things about the new way that the Atlas works, is that with the previous Atlas, we couldn't really allow for target farming in that same way. Or when we did, it was always a problem, like with div cards and so on, where, you know, I mean, obviously we modified div cards so you can move them around now, but generally speaking, it was the case with the old Atlas that if we made it so a map had something special, then everyone would just play that map continuously forever. So with the new system, we effectively can say that, you know, it's okay to have wild variance in between, you know, the value of certain things, because, you know, you're limited by having to find more of it. And if you happen to know that the thing that you want spawns in desert biomes, and then you're using towers to find those desert biomes, and then you're looking around, okay, like finally, you know, I'm just going to go through all the deserts. You can absolutely do that. In the case of Untainted Paradise, that one requires being on the border of the water and a forest. So only forest.
Well, I mean, we could say that, but at the same time, you know, Diablo 2 is target farming. Like that was, you know, one of the things that was really good about it. You know, like if you wanted certain items, you know, certain bosses had much higher drop rates than others. And so now it's similar, but I don't know what the breakdown is going to be, obviously, but, you know, certain areas are going to have higher drop rates for, like, I don't know, let's say stabs or something. I don't know exactly, but exactly.
Forests next to ocean, I believe, will cause that map to spawn. And then, like, we can do other things like that as well. Like, we can have special spawn conditions about, like, you know, oh, when you get this and this, that's when this can spawn. If players learn these things, then they can know what to look for when they're exploring the map.
So does that mean each person has a completely random different starting point? Like, for instance, maybe I'm more prone to find Tainted Paradise, you know, sooner than a different person?
It is certainly true that you can roll well on certain things. Like, you know, there's nothing limiting the fact that you could find 5 Untainted Paradises near where you started and another person couldn't, right? But I think the law of averages will just mean that in general, it kind of ends up averaging out to the same kind of thing.
Sure.
It is an interesting point that you make about racing, because it does mean that if you're looking about the race to 100, it is possible for one person to get luckier than the other as far as what maps spawn for them. But then by the same token, it's possible for someone to get lucky on what items drop for them or some other one of a million things. So the longer you play effectively, the more the law of averages happens and the more kind of it just comes down to play skill rather than randomness. But yeah, ultimately, you know, everyone gets a different experience there.
Gym quality is obviously a thing. We have like Gym Lean Legionnaire, for instance, showing you a plus 12 the quality. Obviously, it's scale, not support, was a difference made. How do you actually do that? I didn't see any gym colors anywhere. So I'm curious to know what's going on with gym quality and the impact that you're hoping gym quality will have.
All right, so no map drops, but we have to find waystones. And waystones, so basically, waystones can be modified, prefix, suffix. Prefix will give you like more EXP or any, you know, positive buffs in general. The suffix will make make it more difficult, but by making it more difficult, you have a higher chance of dropping more waystones. So that way, you end up with more waystones as you go through each different map. So the sustain thing shouldn't be an issue when you're going through that through each one.
have in the game.
Yeah, so effectively what we've done is we made gem quality a late game thing because so it's kind of an end game that you get it. It's not restricted to any one system or anything like that, but it's just something that starts dropping in end game only. Gem quality was one of those things that I think was a bit overcomplicated, or like there was things where like we want to try and do a little bit better when it comes to like what stats we're choosing to scale to make that a little bit more fun. It's nice to have another kind of grind that's like just to perfect the gem. And there's even a few other things like that of like perfecting your gems. There's one other one, but I don't know whether it got in or not. So maybe I shouldn't mention it. You need to have like quite a few different systems at the end where it's like, okay, you can just eke out another 20%. You can eke out another 20% with this. You can eke out another 20% of that, right? There's the role of fusing orbs, which that was the thing. I don't know whether it's in or not, so I'll just leave that as a cliffhanger there.
There was one other skill gem that we saw teased one time and then wasn't talked about again, which was mounts in particular. Also is going to the Ranger, right? We saw the Ranger, but two questions here, which is, are there more than just the Roa mount, and are mounts more than just Ranger? Can I be expected to be a Titan double fisting two-handed maces swinging off the back of a Roa?
Unfortunately not. The bonus that it gives is the ability to fire without slowing down. So only like arrow skills are ones you can actually fire off the back of a rower. So anyone else could ride it, but it's not going to give you any advantage to do so because it's just like the main thing you're getting is the ability not to slow down with arrows. So it's not like some larger system really. It's just like a thing we made for that, and we just thought it was cool. Now I think it'll be cool later to do more mounts for more things. Like I'm sure there's ideas that you could have that would be cool. But for at least for the time being, that's the mount that we've got.
Now I think you alluded to this earlier, but
yeah, there's a row mount, and I guess it's you can use it when you're using a bow, like they said, but that's about it. And it's really just more for something fun, like you said.
Just to further clarify, Atlas progression can be done in a group as well as ascendancies. Can you do those in a group? So when you go to do the ultimatum, etc., you can.
Yeah, so everyone will be able to ascend. Everyone will be able to ascend if you go in a party. For the Atlas, the Atlas state is only one, like it's one person's state. But
I mean, we won't know until we see.
But obviously everyone's getting rewards and so on from that. But but in terms of actually exploration, only one person is getting that exploration because they've all got separate atlases.
The ancestral spirit. The footage shows a monkey who gets summoned. He pounds his chest and he runs into a tree. He just runs away.
Yes, I know. And this came up during when we saw that so late as well. So okay, one thing I think you guys should understand is the fact that you probably assume that this video was ready a week ago. Well, let me tell you, we were rendering it out the night before and still freaking working on it, right? So there are a lot of things about that video that I certainly would have wanted to improve. And the monkey running off into the tree was definitely on the list, okay?
Well, I'm not so much trying to roast you about the monkey. It's everyone wants to know what the monkey do. There's a monkey, but what does the monkey do?
I actually don't know. I would have to ask Mark about that one. He's the one working on that.
Fair enough. So there's a monkey.
Yeah, I know. But the thing, but it was not lost on me though. That one thing, it came in hot, that presentation. Let me just.
So there was a section, I think it's the ascendancy section, where you can summon something. It's more like the bigger chargy type that was added later. The jade kind ones that were from, I forget what league it was. Toa, the Toa League. But it was one of those, and so he was summoned and he ended up just running off screen pretty much instead of hitting an enemy. That was when there was all the gods and stuff like that, and you had to choose your units and have them fight against the other units and stuff like that. But basically it's just it was a type of monster. It was a big old gorilla-ish kind of monster that could charge, and so somebody summoned it and it just kind of charged off screen.
Let me just say that at the event that you even went to, DM, there was you might have noticed the crafting bench that we still had in that version, and that actually got cut. And so what that was going to be was not only was it a crafting bench, but also it effectively served as your encyclopedia of mods. The problem was that the crafting bench had all sorts of issues, which, I could go into if you want, but
I gotcha.
But suffice to say, the feature got cut. Possible that we might bring something like that back a little bit later. But like we did a bunch of UI work to kind of get this to be the case. And I do think that it's good to have that stuff in game. It's just that we don't currently have that for mods. We've got this sitting in the wings. We could theoretically bring it back. The problem is a design issue, not a technical issue. It's just like we're never happy with how it played. And so, yeah, maybe one day we can make a way for it to work. One thing I should mention that maybe wasn't obvious is that anytime something says it grants a skill, that skill is supportable with support gems. So like in the in the presentation, if you saw an ascendancy class and that ascendancy class node says grant skill and then some skill, you can support that skill with socket.
I got you, buddy. Well, I'll definitely be playing PoE too, so you know. I don't know about competition because I don't really compete, but if there's anything that I know that you want to know, or anything that I know that you want to ask questions about, be my guest.
Sockets on your character. So like that time stop, for example, like that's a supportable skill. You can put things on that, and stuff like that. So that's actually kind of one of those things that's not entirely obvious from just looking at it.
Blood Mage, first 2 ascendancies, is a negative input for the class. So I was curious about the decision.
Right. So okay, well I'll go into the Blood Mage one at least. So one thing I should mention about that is that it does allow you to overcap your life by double, which is something that I didn't mention in the video, but it's kind of important, right? So effectively, if you're picking up those orbs, then you can get to double the amount of life that you normally have. So yeah, okay. Mark actually pointed out.
Massive deal.
Yeah, Mark actually mentioned that I forgot to mention that upside in the thing. So yeah, that's kind of an important element as well.
Okay, all right.
So, yeah.
We're just at the Q&A rapid fire, the last few couple from chat here, and then we're pretty much going to send you on your way.
How many ascendancy points are we going to get?
There's so many skills, and there's gonna be so many combinations. We can actually look at the skills in a minute. Let's finish up this video and we'll take a look at those.
In total.
Yeah, so same as PoE 1, it's 8 points. So effectively you've got 6 points throughout campaign, and then the last one you have to be in game to be able to get.
Party play, there was the Chronomancer, looked awesome, was the one that caught me off guard the most.
Yeah, for sure.
How does the freezing time work in party play? Can we get to the point?
It doesn't stop your friends.
Okay.
Yeah, it only stops the monsters. So
so you can overlap these, like have someone go and then the next guy go and then the next guy go, and theoretically.
I don't see why not. That would work.
There you go.
I know you love this Animate Guardian. Will we see it? Will it work differently?
Not an EA, but we'll see. We'll see about that. Actually, no. Okay, there is something. No, you know what? It's not an EA, so I won't talk about it. But there are some other things that kind of take some of the design space of that you'll see later on.
I'm just gonna say one word and a question mark, and the word is golems.
Not right now, but I am sure we'll come to those in the future.
We saw Blood Mage, we saw Infernalist, which seems to be like the fire-oriented minion ascendancy. But where's my Necromancer?
I won't say exactly what it is, but what I will say is this. One challenge we have with the ascendancies is we don't want it to be that if you're playing a minion character, here's the one ascendancy, right? Like, we don't want it to be that this is always your choice. So this makes it very tricky to design, because we need to make sure that there's like something and a variety of these that you'd actually be interested in. So yeah, that's effectively the design constraint we're working around with.
Strong boxes seem like you kind of get locked in, almost like Rich. It takes a really long time for them to come out. So this is another one of those. I wish we could have replaced that shot.
Definitely could have been.
Things, because like afterwards we're like, god damn it, like we sped up the frickin' spawn rate on that strong box like right after we recorded that, and we didn't get a chance to reshoot it. So yes, the number of monsters that spawn from that is much faster normally. It's just that the number was incorrect in that video.
Mouse plus analog concurrently, like if you have an analog stick plus a mouse, can you use them both at the same time? This was somebody asking about an accessibility question.
So we plan to have it so that you can swap, like, so the UI will swap dynamically between the console version and the keyboard version, like when you just use each controller. But right now it doesn't do that. We're gonna get to it. We just need to get to it after the start of EA.
Mouse and keyboard support for consoles.
Not currently there, I believe. It's something that we hadn't really considered until someone asked it very recently. I suppose it could be done. I would have to check in with the console team, but yeah, I don't believe it's there currently.
Ignite magnitude. Could you just, in a short term, explain what magnitude refers to?
Just a multiplier on Ignite. The bigger the hit, the more Ignite damage you get, and then magnitude effectively allows you to scale the Ignite, just a multiplier.
Spin to win. Are we going to see something like a spin to win skill in PoE 2 soon?
You will eventually, just unfortunately the exact cyclone skill of just hold it down forever and just spin forever, we don't have in this version. It is on another class.
Modifiers for maps, for instance, reflect, being eligible, elemental immunities, things like that, concepts for this for PoE 2?
So we do definitely have modifiers that are hard, and look, some modifiers will definitely be something that will be hard on your build. I don't think we've got reflect. You've got to have certain things that your build can be good or bad against, I believe.
One question that came up a few times was related to like an import-export, for instance, for skill trees. So for people can effectively copy paste builds in there. Is this a philosophy you guys are for, against, etc.?
So there's a feature that we never actually finished for this. It's in the game client, but I think probably disabled right now. So it's something that we did plan on doing. It's just that the UI for it was kind of crap and we didn't get time to finish it. But effectively, there was going to be a thing where you could make a .build file, which would effectively be like a skill tree layout that you could import. And effectively, it would work kind of like an item filter. We could throw it in a folder, and then the client would pick it up, and then you can select with a drop down which of the builds you want, and it just shows you the layout, and you can just allocate those points. So we are planning on doing that. We just kind of haven't got around to finishing it yet. So yeah, we'll get to it.
Obviously, you have a good product. You've been making a good product for a while, so you're not surprised you have a good product. But what I'm hearing is there's a lot of interest, maybe even more so than you were. Would you say this is accelerating a little bit larger than you guys originally anticipated?
So obviously, when we get to full release, right? Obviously, the numbers there are going to be ridiculous because it's free. Anyone can play it. I guess the expectation was that because this was paid entry, and also like there's just a general feeling around early access that people have, where it's like, oh, maybe I'll just wait till the release. Like there's always this kind of feeling of like, I'm gonna wait. And I guess my feeling was that because of the fact we had both that and also the fact that it wasn't, like you can't get in necessarily for free. I guess I was thinking like we would probably see sort of similar numbers to what we've seen in previous PoE launches, but just the number of people buying packs and so on. I mean, it's looking like it's going to be
STW. Oh, spin to win. Yeah. No spin to win yet. Cast on crit might not be in there. It probably will be on a different class. But they already have cast on other effects, so cast on shock, cast on freeze, cast on etc. And actually, you mentioning that there is something already in the game, I think it's monk related, that has to do with cast on abilities. We'll actually take a look at that in a minute. We'll take a look at the ascendancies next once we finish this video. So it's more like so the way that it works is you're shocking, like you're building up shock on an enemy. As you're building up shock, your bar for cast on shock is building, and when you hit the full amount for the gem to be activated, it'll activate, and it'll activate whatever you have attached to it.
Be pretty damn huge. And I mean, look, obviously that was my goal, right? I wanted it to be large, and the part of the whole thing of having so much content in early access is literally to get this result, right? So on some level, I can't be too surprised. But at the same time, there's always those factors of like I was completely certain we were going to smash it out of the park with regard to the full release. I just wasn't certain that we were going to have records on records for concurrency on early access, and so it's looking like we will. And that means we have to make sure that our servers are up to the jobs. And it's not really a question of like buy more servers. I mean, we can always do that. Although even that at some level of scale becomes tricky, because like you can't just turn up to Amazon and be like, hey, we need 5,000 servers out of nowhere. Like, they're like, there actually is some level of like, of doing that. So we're doing that, getting you that all organized, but it's also just like the back end, right? Can the back end handle it? We have to write, load testing stuff to kind of make sure that we can try to simulate it, but then, your simulations will never quite.
He has to be, man, because I mean, even though GGG is a smaller company, they've gone through their share of like struggles with the servers and stuff, but they're damn good at working it out like as quickly as possible.
Match reality, you never quite know, will it actually work? So, we're doing our best basically to try and make sure that's the case. But I think we could see a pretty significant amount of people turning up for early access. It's looking like it's going to be very popular.
Is there anything you want to throw out at the end, just because we're about to wrap? Is there anything you want to say, ask, or
I mean, I don't know. Really, I think we probably covered everything. But I just really hope everyone enjoys the game when we release soon. I'm just really keen. And as I said, I'm sorry if the servers fall over. Like I really hope we're able to get the servers to not fall over on release day. That's just my one goal now. So yeah.
All right, cheers.
Amazing.
Thank you very much.
Did you guys enjoy the interview? Thank you.
All All right, we checked out that one, which had Darth Macro transaction and Ghazi interviewing Jonathan. So we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna take a look over here at the video we were looking at a second ago, because we're gonna take a look at sending. Let's see, actually, let's keep going from the classes so we can look at the skills, and then we'll go to Ascension after that, because it kind of transitions.
Start of early access, but we will be adding 6 more character classes with just as many skills and options as these. There's a lot more to come. There's one more important thing to mention about skills. Even though we talk about them as belong to each class, in reality there are no restrictions.
And this is actually a good spot right here to actually look at the skills.
Active elemental skill. We talk about. There are 25 active elemental skills. By endgame, you'll be firing off projectiles left and right as you rain down elemental storms on your foes. Now, those are the characters that will be available at the start of early access, but we will be adding 6 more character classes.
Yeah, 25 active elemental skills.
With just as many skills and options as these.
Or sorcerer skills, technically.
There's a lot more to come. There's one more important thing to mention.
See, so if we actually look here, we can see Elementalist right here, Occult, Primal, Flail, Mace, Axe, Crossbow, Sword, Spear, Bow, Quarterstaff, and Dagger. And then, of course, all gems. Under Elemental, we have Ice Nova, Spark, Frost Bomb, Flame Wall. These are probably like, these, you know, it has a level right here, so level 1. Level 3, there's Orb of Storms, Frostbolt, Ember, I don't know, Ember something, Arc, Incinerate, Solar Orb, Cold Snap, Flammability, Hypothermia, Conductivity, Frost Wall, Lightning Warp, Mana Tempest, Fireball, Firestorm, Ball Lightning, Comet, Temporal Chains, Flame Blast, Eye of Winter, and Lightning Conduit.
About skills.
And so we can see all the skills here for each of the classes, basically. These are occult skills.
Even though we talk about them as belong to each class.
You see they skipped over Primal. Primal has to do with the Druid. They went to Mace. And we see all the slams here. The Ancestral War Totems, Hammer of the Gods.
In reality, there are.
They skipped over Axe, which means Axe belongs to the Marauder. And they also skipped over Flail, which I'm not sure if that belongs to, I think that's the Hierophant. But we can see everything here. High velocity rounds, all sorts of stuff. Oh yeah, all the skills look really, really,
no
really
restrictions.
Good. They skip Spear, of course, because Spear is Huntress, and they skip Sword. So Bow, of course, will be for the Ranger.
You can use all these.
Quarterstaff for the Monk, and then Daggers will be for the Assassin or Shadow.
Skills on any class, so long as you have the attributes. For example, a Poison Ranger might want to try out using Occult Curses to increase her poison damage. Or a Monk might want to trigger Elemental Ice Walls to use with his Glacial Cascade combo. The possibilities for cross-class combos are practically unlimited. We're looking forward to what kind of things you guys might find. Now, Pathofexile is a game known for build customization, and we haven't even scratched the surface of what is possible yet. So let's talk about support gems. Pathofexile 2 has a system of support gems that can be combined with your active skills to dramatically change the way they work. If you find a support gem, then right-clicking it will open up this screen. Here you will find a variety of recommended support gems for each of your skills.
No, that was a mercenary running with the Monk Bell that dropped the Monk Bell and shot it with his crossbow to cause physical damage.
That you can pick between. For example, this is a multiple projectiles support gem and can be used to add multiple projectiles to any skill. Normally, when you fire a grenade, it'll look like this. But if we add multiple projectiles, then you get 3 of them. Once you have the gem, you can also freely move it between any of the skills on your character. If you want to have a multi-shot sniper rifle instead, then simply move the gem over to your high velocity round skill. Generally speaking, if it sounds like a support gem should work with a skill, then it will work. So it's a good idea to experiment. Note that you can only have one of each support gem on your character, so you'll want to think carefully about which supports can be used best with each skill for maximum damage. Now, if you want to stick to the recommendations, you should have a perfectly good time. But if you want to experiment a bit more, then uncheck that recommended button and you can see the full list of supports that will work with your skill. There are hundreds of support gems to choose from, and even we don't know the results of all the possible ways these can interact. Each skill can have up to 5 supports socketed into it, and if you're clever, you can come up with some pretty interesting ideas. Now all of this is just scratching the surface. You can make frost vortexes, break people's armor, make minions explode, make skills repeat, make enemies set each other on fire, cull enemies, or pin them to the ground. Supports let you drastically change the behavior of your skills and create your own unique build, or at least follow someone's OP build guide.
So up here you can actually see the cast on Ignite. It builds up.
So speaking of builds, let's talk about armor, make minions explode, make skills repeat, make enemies set each other on fire, cull enemies, or pin them to the ground. Supports let you drastically change the behavior of your skills and create your own unique build, or at least follow someone's OP build guide. So, speaking of builds, let's talk about one of the most iconic Pathofexile systems, the passive skill tree. Yes, it's huge. There are over 1,500 nodes on there. Now, a lot of people open the tree and can get a little intimidated at first, but try not to be scared. There are lots of options, but at its core, it's pretty simple. Each level you get 1 point to put into the tree. Each class starts at a different location, but they all share the same tree. Around your section of the tree, you'll find relevant bonuses for your character. You should be safe in the knowledge that there aren't many wrong choices here. Almost all the starting nodes will be useful for your character in some way. But if you do happen to make a choice you regret, you'll be able to respec any nodes you've taken by spending a little bit of gold. Now, the tree is generally divided up into clusters which have similar themes. In each cluster you will find small nodes that give simple bonuses like increased damage.
What's up, David? Correct. Gold is your primary currency for respecking. There will not be regrets, etc.
But the real power comes from notables. Notables normally have much more interesting bonuses, and they tend to care a lot more about how your build works and what skills you're using. For example, in the mercenary area of the tree, this one gives a 25% chance for crossbow skills to not consume a bolt. And here's one that gives grenades a chance to blow up a second time. This one gives a chance for projectiles to rebound off terrain, as well as giving you some pierce chance to make that more likely. Note that even though this is in the mercenary section, this would work with projectiles from all classes, so there are often reasons to go to different areas of the tree. In order to get between these clusters, you will generally have to allocate nodes in the attribute highways. Attribute nodes allow you to pick which attribute you would like to use, so it's very easy to get points for any attribute that your gear might need. You can change which attribute these nodes give you for half price at the respec vendor. In addition to notables, you will also find even larger passives called keystones. Keystones have both an upside and a downside, and often require changing your entire build to design around them. A great example is Giant's Blood, which allows you to wield two-hand weapons in a single hand, but doubles the attribute requirements of them. You can use a two-hand mace with a shield, or even dual wield them. Or how about Mind Over Matter, which makes all damage go to your mana pool first before your life pool, but you lose 50% of your mana regen. Skills like these can be tough to build around, but if you're up for the challenge, they can be very rewarding. As we showed you earlier on the Sorceress, you can swap between weapon sets on the fly as you use certain skills. One of the new features in Pathofexile 2's passive tree is that you can choose to have your passive tree change as you switch between weapon sets to take advantage of specific bonuses on the tree. For the Sorceress, you might want to change between fire and lightning specialization. Or you could switch between one-hand and a two-hand setup in order to be able to block boss attacks while following up with heavy hits from your bigger mace. Or perhaps you could have a full curse setup on your witch to debuff enemies before switching to a chaos degen build for maximum damage. If you want to stick with just one weapon set, you can just use these specialization points as bonus points to invest however you like, but creative players will find plenty of opportunities with this system. You can get weapon specialization points throughout the campaign from optional bosses and quests. For example, if I manage to defeat the Crowbell, I'll get a weapon specialization book. There are lots of other permanent boosts available from the campaign too. On the map you can see icons that indicate the many optional encounters you can find. Some of them have permanent character boosts, and others have powerful items. If you're having trouble getting past a boss, it might be a good idea to explore and see what you can find. For example, if you defeat Blackjaw the Remnant, you'll gain a permanent increase to fire resistance. One of the most important finds are spirit bonuses. You can find the first one here in the canopy in Act 1. Defeat the boss in this area to acquire a permanent addition of spirit. The permanent buffs you gain from spirit are very powerful, and every class will find a use for them, so make sure you hunt down these upgrades. There's one in each act. Now we haven't even talked about the most important element of character progression.
Alright, let's take a look at Ascension. Alright.
The last character progression system that you can do during the campaign is Ascension. Starting in Act 2, you will come across Ascension trials, tests that you must complete to unlock your Ascension class. We'll explain these trials soon, but first let's take a look at what Ascending can do for your character. Each class has access to 3 Ascendancy classes, but at the start of Early Access, only 2 per class will be available. Ascendancy classes are unique to each character class, so choose wisely. They can drastically affect how you build your character. As a sorceress, you could become a Stormweaver, a master of the elements. Tempest Caller causes elemental storms to be summoned each time you do a critical hit with a spell. With Strike Twice, you can stack 2 copies of Shock for more damage, and going deeper into the tree, you can make all your damage types apply Shock. Make a Shock build from any skill. Alternatively, you could become a Chronomancer and command time itself. She literally has the ability to stop time with Time Freeze. Not only that, but she has many other time manipulation abilities. Using Temporal Rift, she can teleport back to a previous location, resetting her life and mana back to what it was. Or with Time Snap, she can reset all her cooldowns and cast all her spells again. On the Warrior, you can choose between the Warbringer or the Titan. The Warbringer channels the might of his ancestors to gain tremendous power. Using Answered Call, you can summon ancestral spirits linked to each of your totems. With Jade Heritage,
There goes the monkey they were talking about right here.
Warbringer channels the might of his ancestors to gain tremendous power. Using Answered Call, you can summon ancestral spirits linked to each of your totems.
And see, it just runs off the screen.
With Jade Heritage, you can encase your body in a protective layer that absorbs all damage until it breaks. Warcaller's Bellow allows you to explode the corpses of your enemies. And with Great Wolf's Howl, you can ignore the cooldowns of your war cries. Let all that anger out. The Titan class is all about hitting big. With Earthbreaker, every slam is a chance to create an aftershock. With Crushing Impacts, every hit becomes a crushing blow, which will allow you to stun your enemies with ease. With Surprising Strength, you can take advantage of stunned enemies to deal 40% more damage. As a ranger, you might choose to be a Deadeye, an expert markswoman who can take down foes with style. With Endless Munitions, every attack gains an extra projectile. With Gathering Winds, she gains a small increase to movement speed with every attack, but be careful, she loses them when getting hit. With Eagle Eyes, she will never miss, allowing you to stop wasting all those passive points on accuracy. Alternatively, you could become a Pathfinder, the master of flasks and poison. She can choose from one of several throwable concoctions, allowing her to spend her flask charges to throw explosive bottles that deal various types of damage. A bleeding concoction will make your enemies bleed, while a fulminating one can shock your enemies, allowing you to do extra damage. Contagious Contamination allows her to spread poisons between her foes, while Overwhelming Toxicity doubles the number of stacks they can be infected by. Running Assault allows her to move much more quickly while firing, while Relentless Pursuit makes her totally immune to being slowed by enemies. The Witch can ascend into the Infernalist or the Blood Mage. As an Infernalist, she can summon a loyal Hellhound companion. The Hellhound sets enemies on fire, as well as taking a percentage of the damage if the Infernalist gets hit. With Pyromantic Pact, you can turn your mana into Infernal Flame. As you cast more spells, the flame builds up, and if it overflows, you'll take damage. Using Bringer of Flame, you'll want to make sure you keep the flames topped up. While your Infernal Flame is above 30%, all damage from you and your minions will ignite enemies. She can also transform into a literal demon. While in demon form, she takes an increasing amount of damage, but her cast speed and damage increase rapidly as well. So if you're planning on transforming into a demon, make sure you stack a lot of life recovery. She can also become a blood mage, a master of life and energy. All blood mages must pay the price of making skills cost life as well as mana, but in exchange, every monster they kill will drop life remnants, which allow them to quickly gain back that life. With Crimson Power, she can gain large amounts of extra life, and with Vitality Siphon, she can use her spells to leech life back as well. Once you've got a significant amount of life, you can use Gore Spike to make your critical hits deal incredible amounts of damage. A monk who is in tune with the element.
Technically speaking, I guess not, but at the same time, that was one of the things that Jonathan was talking about when he mentioned that you literally double your health with that build. And remember, you can have minions that are always there. They auto recast and everything like that. So you'll always have minions if you're using skeletons and whatnot. You don't need to summon them from corpses. So I think pretty much all builds should be viable in any situation. It's just about ramping your damage and or your defenses to what you need to survive. And like you said, having minions would definitely be a good shield. Well, I'm sure the mechanic for the dropping of the blood orbs doesn't just have to do with killing mobs. There's probably a mechanic having to do with hitting unique mobs as well.
Might become an invoker. With elemental expression, the invoker will create waves of elemental power each time he does a critical strike. With faith as a choice, you gain the ability to meditate, allowing you to double your energy shield. Choose between I am the blizzard or I am the thunder to specialize in cold or lightning. And I shall rage will allow you to turn into an unbound avatar. Each time you apply a status ailment to an enemy, you gain unbound fury. When you have enough, transform into an avatar to deal way more damage and inflict even more elemental ailments. Some monks choose to reach into the darkness instead. The Acolyte of Chayula can exchange their mastery of spirit for darkness, a resource that can be utilized to both absorb and deal damage. The Shroud of Darkness will protect you from all damage incoming, but if you take Grasp of the Void, you will deal extra chaos damage from all the darkness you have. Their Dark Pact offers greatly increased resistances to chaos damage and can allow their mana leech to not only happen instantly, but apply to their energy shield as well. Another node you can take is Waking Dream, which allows you to see into the domain of the Breach Demons. There you will see the Flames of Chayula that can be taken to gain life, mana, and damage. The Mercenary has a job to do, but which job suits you? You might choose to become a Witch Hunter. Obsessive Rituals will give you a sorcery ward, allowing you to defend yourself against elemental hits in exchange for less defense against attacks. With Zealous Inquisition, your enemies have a 10% chance to explode on death. The chance is doubled against demons and undead. With Judge, Jury, and Executioner, your initial hit against enemies can deal up to 30% of their life and damage, if you're lucky. This is great for hunting powerful bosses. And with Witchbane, you can break your enemy's concentration, preventing them from casting spells as often as they would usually do. You could also choose to become a Gemling Legionnaire, enhancing your abilities by embedding gems directly in your flesh. Integrated Efficiency will give you extra skill slots. Thermatological Infusion gives you extra maximum resistances as you socket more and more support gems. Adaptive Capability allows you to use any color of gem without worrying about attributes, while Crystalline Potential adds extra quality bonuses to every gem socketed into your character. So those are the Ascendancy classes for the start of Early Access, but one thing we haven't talked about yet is how you ascend in the first place.
Alright, we went over that stuff. Let's go ahead and check out the other interview. Just happened today, actually. It was from Talkative Try with Jonathan Rogers. Let's see what they had to talk about.
Perfect levels, Jonathan.
Nice.
Okay, man, like I said a second ago, you are 9 days out from Path of Exile 2 launching, and everyone I'm talking to is excited. It doesn't matter if they've been playing Path of Exile 1 for years. It doesn't matter if they literally haven't played video games ever. I show them just the snippet from the trailer, and they are ready to log in on December 6th. So my first question, what's the secret sauce? How are you guys doing this? How is grinding your games making non-gamers ready to log into a hardcore ARPG?
I think we just have a like when we're presenting our content, we always do it in a way where we're thinking about, like how are people going to react to it? Like, we just, and the other thing as well is that we're not afraid to put information in our videos. Like, I think a lot of people are kind of like, hey, tone it back a little bit, like people don't need so much information, this kind of stuff. But personally, I'm kind of a fan of just like, let's just put everything out there. And if you do that, I think people get excited. So, I guess that's my philosophy about it anyway. And I think people do resonate with that. If you show them just, show them what you got cooking, and show them gameplay, show them, how they be able to, how they're able to use all the tools you give them, and I think they'll be excited.
Definitely. And I hate to bring it up, but it wasn't an interview that dropped today with Legendary Drops. How just during the Settlers of Kalgur reveal, you all pivoted to focus entirely on Endgame. How is your company that agile? Because I work at a company of about 70 people.
Right.
We are not agile at all. What are your processes like internally as developers? Like, how can you move on a dime and just go in?
I mean, I guess it's just about not being afraid to do it, right? I mean, certainly it causes some consternation, right? I mean, nobody likes being like jerked around from one task to the other, that kind of thing. But I think it is important because it just gives us the ability to really make sure we're reacting to what we think is important. And so, yeah, I mean, like, I don't know what to say really. I mean, just like, we just have to make those kinds of decisions and just tell people, this is really what we have to do. Like when you realize that you're not doing the right thing, you really have to jump on, you can't just sort of say, oh, well, we're just keep going to doing the wrong thing just because there's so much inertia, right? Like you have to actually try to turn the ship around. And so, yeah, that's what we did.
Awesome. All right, Jonathan, I have the interview broken down into various different categories here. I wanted to start with questions about new players in particular and just people logging into the game, playing it for the first time and their experiences. So I wanted to start with the fact that in Path of Exile 1, it's renowned for not many people making it even to Brutus. I mean, I know it's a free-to-play game. A lot of people try it out, but even when it was paid, I'm sure a lot of people bounced early on. So I'm curious, first 5 minutes of Path of Exile 2, do you think that onboarding experience is solid and you're going to really wrap people in and get them progressing further into the game?
I'm pretty sure it is. And I think that, like, if you're talking about literally the first 5 minutes, then I think that what will really just get you in is the fact that just the feeling of combat is much better. And that's really the thing you're going to appreciate from the first moment that you start playing. The other thing as well is we have a lot of, not necessarily, I mean, in the first 5 minutes, you're going to come upon your first boss, right? And that will be a much more engaging experience than Hillock was, you know what I mean? Like the first boss is significantly better. But even just after that, right? Even the first 15 minutes, there's like other bosses really close. You're sort of getting into that experience of having the more interesting combat and more interesting things going on just sort of right away. And it's funny, I had a friend over at my place who was playing the game the other day. And there was a word I thought was really interesting that he used for this. He's like, oh, you're so generous with the content. And I was kind of like, it's kind of an interesting way to look at it, is like, he's kind of like, you're giving people what they want so quickly. It's kind of like, I find that's a kind of an interesting way to look at it. But, yeah, I mean, basically we just want people to have a good time. And, even in the from the very beginning, like before we even made Path of Exile 1, like when we founded the company, one of the things that I had as my metric is like, what's the time to first zombie? You know what I mean? Like, when's the first moment you can actually kill something? Like you just kill like a basic enemy. And I kind of want to make that sure that that's as minimal as possible. And that's why we kind of make sure that we start the game the way we do, with like action immediately and that kind of stuff. So, that's kind of just a philosophy we've always had.
Definitely. Getting people right into the action is important, and lots of people, especially viewers of my channel, are completely new Path of Exile players. They've never played an ARPG, they never played Path of Exile 1, and they are wondering, in Jonathan's eyes, what is the busted build? What is the archetype they should log in and play on December 6th if they want to get into the action fast? I'm not going to use you for clickbait videos, Jonathan. I'm just wondering, from your view, I know you said people really like the monk that had a high satisfaction score, but is it the most powerful?
Not necessarily. I mean, I honestly don't know that I should be recommending builds particularly. I mean, I've said a few times, I think the mercenary could be a very good new player friendly class, both because you're further away from the action and just because of that like instant response of everything. Like if you're going to pick something like the warrior or something like that, you're going to have to worry about the fact that you have to commit to attacks and this kind of stuff. Whereas with something like the mercenary, because it's so fast from the point where you attack and the point you recover, and also because you're further back, I think that could be a very good choice for new players. But honestly, like any class can work, like any class can be the one that you work. And look, the main reason why we have classes in the first place, like, because I mean, we could be a game that just has like zero introductory stuff. Like, we already let you choose between and mix and match all the different skills and weapons and things like that. So the reason why we have classes at all is because people really want like a stereotype to latch onto when they start the game, to think about like, okay, how am I going to build my character, right? So you show them some things like, like here's a ranger and here's a sorceress and so on. And then when they see that, they immediately get an idea in their head about what kind of thing it is that they might want to do. So I think that when it comes to that, like, you're best off just picking like what excites you, right? Like what is the thing that just makes you feel like, oh yeah, I could see how I'm going to play this, right? And so you do that, and then I think you'll have a good time.
I baited you into that answer. That's exactly what we wanted to hear, man. Whatever you're going to have the most fun with. And I'm curious on character selection. I know it was talked about in the past that ascendancies might appear on that screen. Are they still not there, and you find out about them in the trials?
Yeah, they're still not there. Look, that screen is certainly something that needs some UI attention. We just haven't had time to work on it more. There's so many things I would still improve even now. But I mean, look, that's what the early access is for, right? There's going to be tons of time to improve on that stuff. But yeah, for the beginning, it's just like, pick what you think sounds like it would be cool, right? And we do have a few like little videos of skills and things like that on that screen, which like show, and like it kind of gives like, so it gives kind of 3 main points for each class of like, here's the kind of things you can expect from that class. And there's a little video for each one as well. So we've got a little bit of information there, but we don't have like, full-on ascendancy classes and everything there. I think there's room for that sort of stuff, but not at the moment.
Okay, awesome. Now I want to move on to testing and what new players, completely new players to ARPGs, found the most challenging in Path of Exile 2. I've heard that Path of Exile 1 players were just shocked by the difficulty of the combat and right. And newer players were kind of fine with it. What did they find challenging, though? Because I know you did a lot of first user testing, and I found that very interesting because you're going to get a lot of first users on December 6th. What did they find hard?
So definitely the things they were finding the most challenging was the character customization and itemization stuff, right? Like that's where they're kind of, potentially finding that they, so, I mean, we asked quite a lot of questions about like, what do you feel like you're skilled at and that kind of stuff. Like, try to sort of get a gauge for like, how people rate their own skills in different areas. And it was certainly like understanding itemization that was the part that people found the hardest. So we've actually done quite a few things to improve in that area, I think, since then. I mean, like, it's just kind of subtle stuff, but just over time, we've just been, carefully massaging towards a situation where, it's easier to find the stuff that you need to find. It's, there's more help, there's more guidance. There's also things like, the socketing system being, I think, a lot easier than the crafting bench system that we had and things like that. So there's things like that, I think, that will help a lot. So that's kind of the stuff that I think new players find the hardest. And then I think that's really just because, I mean, like there's a lot of stats, there's a lot of things kind of coming at you, we just have to make sure that we're not overwhelming you too much with that stuff. And of course, there's the giant passive tree, which always gives people a bit of a scare. So that's really the stuff that I would say that new players find the hardest.
Okay, well, awesome. Now, during the betas, I know that there were a few closed beta tests. People were freaking out when they first got those NDA invites and everything. Between those tests, what were the largest changes, and did you really change a lot about the game after the tests themselves? Because I know, like, when we went to LA, you took a ton of feedback and made a huge number of changes just between March and June. Did that happen again with all the beta tests this year?
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of it really comes down to difficulty, but the thing with difficulty is that people know the game is too hard, but they don't know why it's too hard, and the reasons can be hugely varied between like, oh, it's just this one boss ability to like, oh, the entire way you're scaling spell damage is incorrect, or random stuff like that. So there's all sorts of things, and it's always just, can we tease out what exactly it is that people are running into that's the most, that's the reason for the thing they're finding hard. So I think there was a variety of changes. So one of them was like, the map change where, you can see what's out there so you know what to find. A lot of it was down to, more specific item drops around the place. Then there were things like the flask change. So the flask change was pretty big, I think, because that one really was like people dying to because they were fumbling their flasks. But it took quite a while to identify that was like an issue. Like we knew that we kind of knew that we weren't happy with flasks, but we hadn't. I don't think I'd really appreciated the degree to which a new player really did struggle with them. So that's another one of those things. But I mean, look, it's all over the place, and it's like the devil's in the details, really. Because even something like just the exact specifics of the passive tree, even for a new player, even if they're not like going deep on it, like it can actually be worse for new players because a new player will pick something that's weak without realizing.
Every PoE1 player just jumps in and says, "Just get a mage blood."
And so you need to make sure that everything on there is reasonable. So there's quite a lot, sort of like as I said, it really all comes down to those details that make sure that the game is feeling right. And I think that without doing a lot of those tests, it would have been very hard to appreciate some of those problems because you just don't, when you're playing yourself, there's actually like a tendency where you'll always pick the stuff you kind of know is good subconsciously. So I actually have like a thing when I'm playing now where often I'm like, okay, I'm going to pick what I want and then I'm going to do the opposite of that. Like in order to kind of force myself down the kind of like the not golden path of like, what if you were what if I picked the worst choice every time for like, what are you doing? Like, how can I make sure that that's like not too terrible? That's kind of another thing you kind of have to make sure that you're doing as well.
Definitely. I have two follow-ups from that question. First, and I don't want you to commit to a release cadence or anything, but once we go into early access, do you see the team making large balance changes pretty quickly? Kind of like Pathofexile 1. I'm notorious for going into the freaking ancient history of PoE1 and seeing that when it first released, weekly updates, going in, making huge balance changes, wild swings back and forth, passive tree resets every like 11 days and the like. Do you see that happening with early access given how much larger scale it seems it's going to be? Or is it going to be more stretched out, maybe a month, 2 months, 3 months?
Well, so I think that there's going to be a couple of different things depending on what type of thing we're talking about here. So for balance changes, I have absolutely no doubt that in that first week we're going to be just doing a storm of crazy things, just because like there'll be, I mean, look, there's going to be cases where like people just haven't tested bosses with certain builds and things like that, right? Like, especially in the end game, which has had, less testing, obviously, than the start of the game. So there's going to just be things where it's like someone will be like, oh, this boss is just impossible with minions. And like, someone probably did test it with minions at some point to make sure the AI is good, but there probably wasn't like a really, like, is this actually easy enough? Like that kind of stuff. Like, you'll get changes like that. And I'm sure there'll just be cases where, we need to make those kinds of changes. So the other thing that's going to be, I'm sure, is just lots of like someone finds something that's just like not just busted in a normal way things are allowed to be busted, but like busted in a completely ridiculous way that just can't be allowed to stand. I'm sure that will happen, and as long as we can fix that stuff fast enough, I think that we may have to do a few things like that. But ideally we don't. But we'll see how that goes. So I'm sure on the first week there'll just be lots of that stuff. But if you're talking about like larger content inclusions, like if we're talking about like new classes and like.
Possibly, but I know they're looking for bugs. One of the bugs that popped up actually right before they did the live stream, Ziggy D was playing the game and he was playing on a specific character with a mercenary with like stun grenades or something like that, and he ended up sending a boss what they were calling an elevator, but basically like just the boss disappeared from the map.
Like more sort of content type things. I suspect that we'll probably batch those up into like a larger cycle. Probably like, I mean, we were thinking like 2 months. It might end up being 3. Like, I'm not entirely certain. But we'll kind of like work that out when we go there. The funny thing is like, so like months ago we had plans for what we wanted to do immediately after release, but as you get closer to release, like everything just falls apart and you kind of have to be like, okay, after release we'll just have to take stock and see where we are, because no contact survives no plan survives contact with the enemy, as they say. So we'll just have to sort of reassess and see what's going on at that point. But effectively, we'll probably do larger updates, just because I think in order to actually get good testing for something, you have to get enough players back to actually test it substantially. And people certainly are much more willing to come back for a larger update than they are for a smaller one. So I think that's kind of important. We actually noticed in PoE1 when we were doing the weekly updates that, we didn't really see like a lot of people come back for them. Like the people who were playing were really happy, but the people who weren't playing it wasn't rising to the level of them actually coming back. So I think it's better to make sure that if you've got a new update for even in early access, you want to make sure there's enough to kind of sustain it. But of course, that doesn't mean that we're not going to fix all the like random small issues that like anything that doesn't like that wouldn't be an attractive thing for someone to come back for. You might as well just put it in immediately because like that's just that like bug fixes and just little balance changes because it's not like a big deal anyway. So you might as well just throw it in there.
Definitely. Now, I have to ask because I have been yearning ever since I saw it at ExileCon 2023. The Druid, the bear form.
Yeah.
Is that the reasons the Druid is delayed? Because it's got crazy animation problems with WASD, or is it just the final bit of polish on the third form?
No, it's not that. It's just literally that we had to pick something. We had to pick like when we were slimming down for early access a little bit because as I said we're going to have 8. When we're slimming down, we're like, look, unfortunately the Druid is going to have to be on the chopping block for now. It was really sad, but we just had to pick our battles. And I have no doubt that that'll be one of the next ones that comes out. And the reason ultimately is that making a new form for the Druid just is a lot of work. One of the forms wasn't done. We looked at the amount of work it would take to get the Druid over the line, and we're just like, look, if we can not have that, especially because when it comes to the stuff, it's like if you're talking about adding like a new animal form, that's like work that could go into like making a new boss fight or something like that. Because it's the same kind of like it's the animation team. Ultimately, you have to do like a bunch of work to do that stuff. Rigging or just all that stuff has to happen. So it isn't just the sort of skills pipeline, as we might call it, that has to be worrying with that. It's also the the kind of the animation team who work on that stuff. So when we look at that, it's just like, look, if we cut this, it's going to add more content elsewhere. Versus if we cut this other class where it wouldn't really so much. So that's kind of how those decisions get made.
Right. That makes total sense. Now I have 2 very quick ascendancy questions for you, and then we'll move into classes themselves. First, last time we spoke, when we spoke in March, I tried to get some ascendancy details out of you, and you said you were working on a broken sorceress ascendancy. You didn't know if it was going to make it into the game. Did it make it into the game, or are we not seeing
So that was the chronomancer, the like time stop and everything. Like I just I mean, the moment you tell people you can, like, the moment we're like, oh, we want to be able to stop time, it's like immediately, that's how do you make
Powerful.
that not OP? It was absolutely that. It's very fun to use. It's just really cool.
Awesome. Glad to hear it made it into the game. And then the other ascendancy question, can you change ascendancies in PoE 2?
So you actually can't right now. I think I did another interview recently where I thought that we could, but I believe that you can't at the moment. There's probably more discussion to have about that. I do know that certainly some designers are very keen to be that a locked choice. We'll talk about that more. We'll see how that goes. But at the moment you can't, and so that'll be how it goes into early access anyway.
Okay, so for the foreseeable future, once you pick an ascendancy...
not necessarily. As I said, we'll talk about this more, but,
Okay.
But in the moment, at least, you can't change them.
Okay, sounds great. Now, classes, just broad questions about the classes from me. So you've talked about the monk having the highest satisfaction score for everyone who's tested. Which class has the lowest satisfaction score, and what are you doing to perhaps bring it up, if anything?
So the one thing to say is that the difference between these is not like super high, but the lowest one on that survey that we were referring to was actually the sorceress, funnily enough.
Really?
And I think that the reason for it is just because in the skill set, there's not like quite as much combo stuff as what some of the other classes have. And so we actually, after that point, we did work a bit on that and try to sort of improve, make a few more of those things sort of work together a little bit. But I think there's a little bit more work to do. I think that what I've heard some people say about the sorceress is it's a little bit more in the PoE 1 direction of like there's less kind of like less cross element combinations than what some of the other classes have. So therefore, like if you do pick that class, like there will probably be more situations where it's like there's less, like you're probably going to use less skills overall than other classes, or rather, it's not so much that you will use that, but like you won't be forced into as much using more variety. So I think that's something we can still improve by just adding more synergies between the elements. But that's at least my understanding of probably why I think that's the case. But as I said, we've already made some changes since the point when we did that survey. So I think that it already is, like somewhat improved already by that. That was the thing. But I mean, as I said, we're talking like, 0.1 of a, like if you, out of 5 stars, it's like 0.1 of a star lower than the others. And like when you sort of dig into it, it's like, yeah. But I mean, as I said, I think that's at least my reason for, for why I think the sorcerer was like that. But that's kind of, as I said, we can always improve that. And I think we have been as well.
Yeah. Awesome. Just wanted to hear. I thought it would be a curious question.
Yeah.
Now, this one, I don't know if you can answer it or not. But everyone knows there's a monk in Path of Exile too. Monks use quarterstaffs. Monks use their fists a little bit with finishers and, mobility skills. Are there any unarmed combat support options? Is the default attack supportable with your fist? Can you make something busted with it? What is that a thing in PoE2 right now? Or
So I believe that default attack is supportable. I'm like 99% certain of that, but I have to admit, I haven't actually seen that user interface myself because I haven't made an unarmed build. There is a plan for a bunch of unarmed build support, but it actually did get cut for early access for the time being. So unfortunately, I can say that Facebreakers will not make it in to early access, but we do have a plan for it. There is like a whole thing for that's going to support that with other stuff. Now, one of the reasons for that actually is that it would require making unarmed versions of a ton of skills, like animations.
Oh, okay.
There's actually it ended up being cut just for that reason alone. Like it was just a bunch of animation work that we ended up not having time for. And effectively, you're talking about a bunch of animation work that's just to support that one unique, because like that unique really is like kind of the key to being able to make unarmed damage like actually decent. There were a couple of other things as well that were sort of intended for unarmed things, but yeah, we're not going to do it for now. But it'll come in the future. We'll get to the point where you can do that.
Okay. Is Facebreakers still a pair of gloves in PoE2?
Yeah, it is.
It is?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. This is a fun one just for you, Jonathan. What is your favorite skill to use in Path of Exile 2 right now? I know you're a mercenary fan. You're playing through as the mercenary right now. Is it on the merc or something else?
That is really tricky. Look, I mean, if we're talking about the merc, then my favorite thing is definitely the ice wall that shot us. What's it called? I can't remember even the name of it, but it's the one that fires a shot and then makes like 2 diagonal ice walls that come out, and then following up with the fragmentation rounds to explode them. Like I just love that combo. It just feels really satisfying to me. But it's like obviously like every class there's interesting stuff. Like on the monk, it's probably the bell. Like I just love that bell. There's so many little things about its design, and it's just a fun skill. Like I love that kind of thing. So those are definitely up there for 2 of my favorites. But I mean, there's always new stuff. There's lots of cool things, right? That's just the kind of stuff that I like to do.
The bell is incredible, and you guys even snuck a showcase of it with a crossbow rapid shot.
Yes. Yes.
That was so good.
just to give a hint to the idea that there might be some pretty interesting ways that you can do some pretty cool stuff.
Oh, definitely. All right, rapid fire question here. Can we use the weapon swap system passive skills to allocate keystones, or can they only allocate notables and travel nodes?
So you can't do keystones, but I actually do have some interesting stuff to talk about with this because we were originally going to allow that, but then so the skill that actually originally was like that completely broke this, that we realized like this was going to be like not okay, was Necromantic Aegis, funnily enough. Which now for anyone who doesn't who hasn't played PoE1, effectively what this does is it makes it so the stats from your shield are transferred onto your minions. But when you've got weapon swap involved, where like we like if you can turn that on and off, it causes the specific details of this are kind of complicated, but it caused a lot of chaos in like how the stat system worked and like how the minions would have to work and like the snapshotting of this and like just a whole lot of details around that were very complicated. And then at some point while we were discussing that, because we kind of were like, okay, how are we going to even implement this? It was like a whole thing. Then we're like, well, hang on, like, is it even okay for other keystones anyway? Like, when you really come right down to it, like, is Chaos Inoculation really okay if you can turn it on and off? Like, it's kind of supposed to be this like massive downside, and like, if you can just like, like it's kind of like we're kind of thinking maybe it wasn't okay, and then we sort of made the decision. You know what? Maybe keystones should actually be not swappable like that, just because of the type of. I think that might be a balance problem too far, even for us. Like even as far as we're willing to like accept a lot of these kinds of problems, like I think that might even be a bridge too far, even for us. So yeah, we decided not to allow it, and that's what we're going with for now, anyway.
Yeah, you knew people were already theory crafting ways to like get the perfect.
Yeah, there was no way that was going to go through. It would be completely broken. Using Giant's Blood, you could swap between two-handers, like using double two-handers or something like that. You could swap to like be in low life to cause yourself low life to swap over and have more crit damage. Using Pain Attunement, there's all sorts of broken stuff. There's no way they shouldn't. There was no way they shouldn't even have been thinking about allowing that.
Keystones on their side. Oh yeah, definitely.
Right.
That's good. Another rapid fire, if you know off the top of your head, how many passive points are there in total? Because people are already looking at the tree and trying to path through it
Sure,
right
sure.
now.
I believe it's 122 is the final count, and once you get all of the optional skill books and stuff like that.
Okay, awesome. Another rapid fire. This is a spicy one, though. Are you able to do a one-button respec if you have enough gold or if you pay a premium, or is it one node at a time?
You will have to do one node at a time. And like the thing is, I mean, yeah, I guess I can see why people would want that. But generally speaking, that's not the kind of behavior we're really encouraging, right? Like we want you to actually be changing your build from one to the other. So yeah, there's just a one node at a time. I mean, look, it won't take you too long, right? You can click 100 times even if you're level 100. Like it's not too bad.
I know it won't. I get it. I totally get it. Another one. So we've seen this key term overflow a few times, and some people are wondering how it works. Could you explain how it works?
Yeah, so anytime you've got something that says overflow, it means that you're able to overcap that resource by up to double. So effectively, overflow just means, like if it's leech or if it's like, any other kind of thing that gives you back life or, for example, or mana or shield or whatever it is, it basically just means, you can get back up to double of that resource.
Okay, awesome. That makes sense even to me, and I'm pretty simple-minded about these mechanical sort of things. Awesome, thank you. All right, another rapid fire. Can you use skills granted by ascendancies in meta gems, like Cast on Shock?
No, you can't. So when you get one of those ascendancy skills, they effectively just appear in your skill screen. Like they're not a gem; they're just kind of like there and locked in by that. So because you can't take them out and put them somewhere else, you can't put them in a meta gem.
Okay. And then meta gems, can you use multiple of the same meta gem? I know you can't repeat supports, but can you have 2 cast on ignites in your build?
You absolutely can. But of course, you'll have to pay the spirit cost for both of them. So that's how that's balanced, and that's why it's fine.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, you guys released a teaser yesterday. I'm not sure if you saw a scepter minion ascendance or not ascendance.
Yeah.
Oh, the second scepter that looked like a mirror tier item, which was just awesome to see. All right, now we're going to move on from classes, and we're going to talk a little bit about combat. So when I played Pathofexile 2, the Draven fight and the Executioner fight hard locked me for combined about 4 hours. What right now do you think is the hardest boss fight in Pathofexile 2's campaign? Not the end game, but the campaign itself. And do you think it potentially is going to hard lock a lot of players if they're stubborn and they get that Elden Ring mindset where they're just like, I'm just going in over and over. I'm not stopping until it hits 0.
Well, so we've definitely tried to improve the issues that we had with that in Act 1. But what I would say is that the further you go into the game, the less kind of like of the feedback we've been able to address overall, just because if there's less of it, right? Like as you go further. And so effectively what that means is that I have no doubt that if there's a boss that's going to hardlock people, it's almost certainly going to be in Act 3, I would say, something like that. But I mean, on the same time, like ideally the hardest bosses are later in the game. Like that's kind of what you want in some sense. So I mean, look, some of those fights are pretty hard. I don't know that there's one that I'd point to as like this is the hard one. Really, I mean, as I said, we kind of try to make sure that they're all kind of a relatively even keel, or rather slowly increasing as you kind of go through. So my hope would be that the Act 3 end boss is one that people will find the hardest, and then ideally the second time through it's even harder again. So, but we'll see how it goes. And as I said, as you now know, right, like if you go around the rest of the areas, you'll find other stuff, you'll find more items and so on, and that'll definitely help you. And if you come back, you'll definitely do a lot better.
Question on bosses in regular versus cruel. Do they have new abilities in cruel, or are they the same, just a little buffed with damage points?
So usually they don't have like completely new abilities, although I think that in some cases there might be a little bit of that. Usually what it is, it's kind of tweaking the parameters or the AI or the radii and like things like that, just like things about them. And it makes skills feel dangerous in new ways quite a lot of the time, just because, like a skill can feel very differently just by changing where it is you go. So the same is true in maps as well, where once again, you've got we have to make sure that some of these bosses that were balanced for people who are, level 10 or something, are now able to feel like they're challenges in the end game. So effectively, we have to do something about them. We can't just leave them as they are. There has to be tweaks. And so, a lot of those changes effectively just get made to make and they make the bosses feel quite different. The other thing as well that you have in Cruel is that there are just monster types that have been shifted around and things like that. The combat in areas can feel a little different as well, in some cases. So there's just little fun details like that can vary things up and just vary the experience up a little bit.
Awesome. Now, one more combat monster related question, and it's revisiting a favorite topic of the Path of Exile community: rare monster modifiers. We haven't seen a lot of that about in Path of Exile 2 in the past little while.
Yeah.
We've seen some of it in the playthroughs. Is that philosophy the same as in Path of Exile 1, or are we expecting to see 3, 4 mod rare monsters? And how do you keep the monster's identity when you add a whole bunch of modifiers to it? Because all these monsters, they're unique fights in of themselves, right? So how do you keep that clean?
There's actually been quite a lot of specific work on rare monsters that I don't think we've talked about to anyone yet, actually, and it's probably quite interesting. So the first thing I will say about it is that we realized a while ago that it's actually, like, not every monster type makes sense as a rare. Like, if you just have a rare zombie, it's just kind of like, it's not a good fight. So we actually decided, hey, you know what? We're going to pick monsters that are going to be ones that can be rare. And bear in mind, many of them can. And then what we'll also do is, if there are monsters that that don't work well as rares, maybe there's mechanic changes we can do for rare versions of that monster that could improve that. So then what we started to do is we're like, oh, you know what we're going to do? We're actually going to split out the monster types for monsters and then the rare version of that monster. And then we're actually going to do specific balance for the rares of those monsters. And that actually matters as well, because there are mods that can go on certain monster types that, like, just completely blow out the life to unreasonable levels and things like that. Like, there are actually cases where now that we've actually got the ability to do specific balance for a rare of a given monster type, we can actually tune that difficulty to make that much better. And so they'll get extra, they'll actually get extra abilities in some cases, just because they're rare. Like, I mean, as a random example, there are, like, the very first monster, the quill, in the first area, so after the zombie, you've got the quill crab, which is these little things that shoot little spikes. And they also appear later on in the hunting grounds as, like, a poison version of those. And I believe if those are rare, and I think I'm getting this right, then they immediately get a different way that the spikes work. And, like, I'm trying to remember the exact details of this, but it's like they, like, land on the ground and explode afterwards or something like that. There's, like, some little thing that sort of happens. So effectively, it's like there's, like, little specific things that we can do. And so that stuff, I think, helps a lot. And look, I'm sure we're going to do more of this, like, after the early access is launched as well, like more things like that. But it really upgraded the rare fights quite a lot to be able to do that specific balance. And then, of course, you also have the mods. And once again, we're doing a whole pass on mods and trying to make them a lot better. I mean, look, there's even more we can add here, I'm sure. But trying to make sure that each of the rare mods that we add, like, makes sense for the monster. We make sure that the rare mods, like there are pulls and tags, so that, like, you don't necessarily get every single mod on every single monster, to kind of make sure that they make sense and actually have a reasonable fight. And I don't even know if this got done, but there was talk at one point about having a for each rare. And once again, I don't know if this actually got implemented or not, but we were talking about having it so that for each monster, we make sure that at least one fun mod goes on the monster to kind of make it have like a by what I mean by that is, like, we look at each monster type, we're like, okay, here's a set of different mods that are going to make it so that the fight has some kind of interest to it. We make sure the first step is, like, put one of those on it, and then after that, then we can kind of be more random with what the rest of the mods are, and things like that. So yeah, there was actually quite a lot of balance stuff there that went into that, and there's more to come. But I think that the rare fights you will find are significantly more interesting in PoE 2 than they were in PoE 1 because of all the specific attention that they had.
They definitely sound like it. Everybody's freaking out. That sounds amazing, especially that first system of just the monsters changing implicitly if they're rare versus if magic or normal. That's a great answer. Can you answer if Soul Eater is in Path of Exile 2?
I actually don't know the answer to that. You'd have to ask Mark that one. So he's the one who's been setting up all that stuff. So I actually don't know. I would have to go check with him on that one.
All right. Lovely. Love the answer, man. Okay. Now we got a bulky section on endgame that I want to dive into here. I want to start with, again, another infamous Path of Exile problem that we've experienced in Path of Exile 1. And I think it's one of the reasons you designed Path of Exile 2 in its endgame. One-shots. How are one-shots in endgame looking right now? I'm not talking about bosses using huge abilities and obviously one-shotting you, but I'm just talking about randomly mapping your mediocre defenses and you just get one shot out of the blue. Is that happening in testing, or is that avoided for the most part?
Well, it's definitely happening at the moment, and that's because we just haven't finished the balance of a lot of monsters. And it's one of those things that's actually really hard to completely root out, because there are a lot of attacks that some people, depending on their playstyle, just might not get hit by. And obviously, you know, when the balance people do their initial balance, they try to get it right. But it's one of those things that's just easy to miss. And so I have no doubt that at the start of early access, there will be cases where some monsters are just unfair. And you know, that'll happen. I mean, like when we were doing the beta test, there were these like spiders that were just like so nasty, and like we looked at the damage. I don't remember exactly why this occurred, but it was just like, oh, it's literally doing 10 times the damage it was supposed to be doing, right? And like someone just made a typo, and yet like we played a bunch of times, and like none of the people that were testing before we did a beta noticed the fact that was happening, right? They just managed to avoid it all the time, or they only got hit by one of the bits, or you know, something like that. And so you know, we just missed it. And look, I'm sure that's going to happen, right? Like there will be some rough edges like that, but you know, we'll, as soon as we hear about them, we will do our best to fix them. But look, we're trying to root out all that stuff as much as we can at the moment, and you know, hopefully the players don't experience too much of that. But yeah, I'm sure it'll happen. But yeah, look, we don't want people to be just like randomly out of nowhere, just dying for nothing. So yeah, that's something we'll just have to make sure we're addressing as we get more balance testing in.
Right. The term I hear a lot from people, especially who went to the recent event in LA, is war of attrition. That's what it feels like in Acts 1, 2, and 3. So there's nothing really instant happening. You're fighting against monsters. They're draining you down. You're draining them down. And it's a war between you two. So there's no instant one-shots really happening unless it really is your fault. That's what I heard from like Big Ducks. He said, if I died, it was my fault. I felt good about that. I love that feeling. On monsters,
well, that is the goal that is the goal for sure, to make it feel that way.
Okay. And it sounds like the deadliness is on a by monster level. And a lot of people are curious. I think Mark said in the endgame presentation that every map is fully random at endgame. All monster types, no matter of biome. Is there anything that determines?
So there actually is a like one monster, I believe, or at least a type of there will be one pack in the map that's always there, but all the rest of them are random. And what the kind of main point we were trying to make with that is that in PoE 2, we pretty much all monsters. I mean, look, there are some like monsters that are just like swarmy little things that don't really do anything, but for the most part, monsters all have some kind of ability or mechanic or interesting thing going on with it. And so, in endgame, it really is the fact that you've got the combination of all those different types that really makes the combat interesting.
Yeah.
And you kind of never really know what you're going to get. And so, I mean, look, PoE 1 does have that effectively the same idea going on. It's just that so few of the monsters in PoE 1 actually have like different mechanics, right? Like like 1 in every 5 might do, but it's like in PoE 2, it's like there are so many more things going on. They have movement skills and like random abilities and things like that. It's just, yeah, there's just a lot going on with them. So yeah, that it's the combination of that really gets you that really introduces that stuff.
Perfect. No, I love that. I love that there's a little bit of a theme that's there as you're hunting these different biomes and maps, and then the rest is random.
But the thing is, you're still going to get like some pretty out of place stuff. Like I know, like I went into a city map the other day and there's a gorilla attacking me, and I'm like, what the hell is this guy doing here? But you know, the end game's like that.
Are the bosses the same for every map? I'm sure they are. Like you're not going to get a gorilla boss in the series. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So the bosses are picked for the map if they spawn. Later on, we're talking about making it so that there are different, even within one map, we might have a couple of different bosses that can spawn there. But we'll kind of have to see how we go about that. It does take a bit of work, and so we haven't done that yet. And it kind of depends a bit on like how many maps there are versus.
They should 100% make it to where like multiple bosses can spawn in the map, like not like rotate, but you know, like two of the same bosses or two bosses of the area type. It'd be awesome.
How many bosses and that kind of stuff. So that can be fun too.
Oh, that sounds awesome. It sounds like some people would just get shocked as they walk in. That's how I expect to be when I walk into the pinnacle boss, whoever it is, for the first time. I expect to just get like Cirrus die beamed, and it's like, oh, all right, well, got to build up defenses better. I can't wait for that. On that note, too, all the boss arenas look like they have so much detail within them, and they're so distinct from their actual arenas from the campaign. The example I saw that stuck out to me was the Colossus is like now in the heart of a volcano. Is the level of detail and distinction there for a lot of the boss fights?
Yeah, so effectively we're trying to make it so that like ideally when we're using a boss in maps, we can put it in a different context so that it feels like a different fight. And that, like, yeah, I mean, look, we have to definitely reuse certain components of the arena because often there's arena mechanics that we have to make sure are there. But
Yes, sir.
even just the feel of the arena that can make it feel quite different. Like, for example, if you're talking about
What's going on, Nate?
something
How
like
you
the
doing, buddy?
Carrion Crone, who's just in the second area. She's in a much bigger arena when you fight her in maps, and she also, like, all of her AoE abilities have been like ramped up so that they like have target a much bigger area, and things like the way the wolf spawning, that's like a different pattern. There's more of them and stuff like that. So effectively, like, the fight actually feels quite a lot more advanced when you fight it in maps for that reason, just because the arena's different, and like the placement of all of the markers that the designers use to, like, configure all that stuff. Like, they've that there's a lot more that's gone into that. So effectively, that can make the recontextualize the fight in quite a cool way.
Oh, that just sounds so exciting. How
Man,
many of
I
these are
want
we getting
that
on
the
launch?
most
Is it around
expensive one,
50?
but I'm not working right now.
So
I'm
the
just
50
like,
bosses, like,
I don't know.
all the bosses that you have through campaign are in endgame in some way.
Okay.
So it's just a question of whereabouts, how we use them, and so on. But of course, then there's also the bosses that are in endgame that aren't in the campaign as well. So there's quite a bit of that too.
Yeah, the secret pinnacle that I'm going to try to get you to leak at some point during this interview.
You'll have to wait. I definitely won't be leaking that one.
Okay. All right, next question also on Endgame. So previously, I think earlier this year in an interview, you mentioned that once you get to Endgame, about a third of the loot will come from pack monsters,
Yeah,
a third will come from special mechanics, and a third will come from bosses and maps. Now with bosses only being in every 4 maps on average, is that philosophy still the same, or has that shifted a little bit?
Yeah, so that definitely has shifted due to the change to the way the mapping in-game worked. So this was always a struggle, right? Because the real thing wasn't so much the amount of loot, but the amount of time you're spending on things. And I think that having to spend 1/3 of your time, if you're not interested in doing boss fighting right now, is a little bit high, and definitely wasn't working. So I really we like to give players choice about what type of content they can fight, and we realized the bossing was also one of those type of things, right? Like, do you want to do bossing or don't you? So I think that the balance of that is a lot better now, and I honestly don't know what the percentage would be now that you sort of have control over it at this point, but effectively, yeah, like that has definitely changed around due to that.
Okay. And in testing, how is pack difficulty versus boss difficulty? Are bosses just way harder? Like, I know a lot of people say, like, oh, I want to chill when I'm fighting packs, and then when bosses, they can be really intense. Is it kind of that difference?
Yeah, exactly. And look, the big reason for making the change of not having a boss in every map area was literally for this, right? To make it so that we can make the bosses actually hard relative to the pack difficulty, because that's what sort of that sort of maintains the integrity of the combat system, if you will, because like that's where you really have to get into the detail, like really concentrating and like actually using all your abilities to the maximum. Whereas pack clearing, you can chill out a little bit more. But that being said, we still want you to run into rares occasionally that are like crazy. So it's you still want that, but they're not going to be as crazy as the uniques are.
Okay, awesome. Rapid fire question on Endgame: why does the Waystone or map opening UI still have 4 slots? Is that intentional? Is there something that hasn't been revealed?
So we actually had 4 slots when we started PoE1 as well, even though we had no idea what we were going to use that for. So it's just like one of those things where it's just like you put it in there. It's like, maybe we'll use this one day. So there's literally no other reason than that. We had 4 in the back of the old days, and we're going to just do it again now. Just it's fun little thing. Look, one day I'm sure we'll find something to do for that.
Okay, I love it. No, I didn't know that about Pathofexile 1. That it was always 4.
I'd love to interview Jonathan Rogers, or actually, I'd love to interview
another
Neon.
one that could be a little long. I'm not sure. Maybe it's a simple answer. So it sounds like there are currently 4 tiers of endgame boss or endgame encounters, but technically from what we saw from the Atlas passive trees, we can get +5 to those encounter levels. Right. Is the 5th tier meaningless, or is there an extra secret tier?
So what happened there is I'm a programmer, so I always count from 0. So when I say difficulty 4, it's like the first difficulty is difficulty 0, and then you've got 1, 2, 3, 4. So there's technically 5 difficulty tiers there, but I referred to the top one as difficulty 4. So maybe the players will refer to that a different way than I am. But yeah, that's just what that is. Now technically, it is actually possible because of the fact that the small nodes and the big nodes are the way they are. It's actually possible in some cases to cause it to be 1 tier even above that. But if you do that, it will not result in the difficulty being higher. That's actually kind of just a quirk of the way that the nodes are. So that's just effectively capped in that regard, which I guess might be kind of fun to have like an extra sort of hidden thing like that. But we decided not to in the end. So yeah, there's just there's effectively 5 difficulties, 4 difficulties above the bottom one. Yeah.
I know you're saying that, but everybody needs to try that on launch, okay? There's a hidden difficulty, maybe that they don't want us to know about.
I don't think so. No.
Okay. This one might be pretty quick too. So how high in tier do Waystones go? We saw tier 79 in the endgame teaser. Is that...
Just to clarify, he's not paying attention. It's not tier 79. He's talking about the level of the area being 79. Now, obviously, it'll go up to 83 with the maps, and the maps will go off of the Waystones. Waystones start at tier 1, and they go up to tier 4, whatever the case might be, into red maps, which would be 83. And then, of course, there's uniques and stuff like that. Technically, the Waystones go from, I think, T1 to T15, and then they can go up past that if you corrupt them to T16.
So, I mean, the way what it's supposed to be is like T15 is like it goes from T1 to T15. I think it might have been that it was listing object level there, and there might even have been some inconsistencies between different clips depending on when they were shot. I'm not 100% sure about that, but ultimately it goes from T1 to T15. However, there is...
Hey, Nate, there's boats. You can race boats in there. I'm just saying.
A corruption outcome that can go +1. So that lets you that just lets you go a little bit further.
Ooh, I love that.
With that.
Okay, so it was potentially like a monkey issue. That's what I'm going to call the
sure,
inconsistencies. The monkey issue.
If you like.
Okay. Awesome. Okay, well, that was it on Endgame for now. Now I just want to go into a few general questions about the game. Some rapid fire, some a little bit longer. This first one, I'm curious, going into early access, what's one system you are hyper confident won't need further iteration, and one system you're pretty sure is going to be broken under the weight of the players and you're going to need to have a lot of iteration on?
It's a really hard question. Look, I think that where I'm most happy is like all the way the skill and support system works, I think is very solid. Like I'm very happy with all of that. I think it's just a massive improvement over how PoE1 was. I would say that the stuff that's going to require a lot of variation will definitely be endgame stuff, right? Because like that's the stuff that's had the least testing from players, and from betas and things like that. Look, I have no idea what kind of changes we may want to see there. Like I'm pretty confident in it, but like you never know what will happen when people actually go for that. So I mean, look, there's a lot of stuff that could need changing there, and we'll just have to work on that as we see the players, as we see what the players think. But the other thing as well is that of course the end game is where there's the most I guess like you have to get it right completely, because it's like that's kind of like your final, like the final experience you're having is like playing through that content. So it's like you can have a single boss fight that's like maybe people don't like it in campaign, that's like not a big deal. But if you're talking about just the core staple of what it is that you're doing in the end game, you have to make sure you get that exactly correct. And even the tiniest details can significantly affect the experience. So, I'm sure there'll be a lot of tweaking there, and like some things maybe just like a tiny number tweak, but it ends up being like a massive difference as far as player experience goes. I'm sure there'll be a lot of iteration there.
Okay. Now, one system that I've had a little bit of discussion about in my community is the flask changes. Are you pretty confident in those, limiting you to just having a life and mana, or do you see yourself perhaps allowing that for a wider variety of flasks in the future if you want to reintroduce them?
I do think that it is important to make it so that is as simple as possible, because it really is one of those friction points you get for new players. But I think the charm system is really where we can go wild there. And so I think if we were doing like more kind of interesting stuff or like expanding on that, I think we'd do it in the charms where we can. That's kind of intended to be the thing that you can expand on with that stuff. I just don't want it to turn again into a situation where you feel like you have to constantly be pressing buttons like all the time in order to be able to do that stuff, because I think that really was kind of wearing on people. And it's like, if you're going to be pressing buttons, I would rather the buttons you're pressing are for using active skills rather than just using flash.
So it's going to be dedicated health and mana, even if you were to get past the point where you really needed a mana flask. Let's say you have enough mana leech, etc. You're always going to have that mana flask. I believe there is a discussion about possibly being able to swap out for another life flask or something like that. But currently, you're like, those are basically permanent. It's a permanent life and a permanent mana flask that'll be there, and then you'll have to open up the slots for your charms. And the charms, of course, will be for like when you get frozen or you take cold damage, fire damage, you're ignited, etc., etc.
Flasks. So
Right.
yeah, ideally it can sort of move some of the like physical skill off just pushing flask buttons and move it onto using skills instead.
Okay. All right. All right. This is a tough one.
That I don't know. They really didn't bring that up. I think maybe the flask itself will adjust as you level, unless we're just gonna get like separate mana and life flasks as we go. I guarantee we have to be able to roll them, so we have to be able to upgrade them. But it's always gonna be a permanent mana or life and mana flask slot. So that's all that can go in there.
Maybe. Maybe not for you. Over the past 6 or so years, what has been the single most challenging aspect of development? I know it's broad.
Yeah, so I think really the big challenge is just underestimating like the scope of what it is we set out to do.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things where we're constantly having to it's like we have a quality level we want to hit.
Yeah.
And it feels like it shouldn't be as difficult as it is to hit that quality. Like it just really is a constant battle. Yeah, I mean, look,
I think that, Jonathan, though,
it is difficult.
I think that's why so many people are resonating with this release. It's very obvious that you have hit a high quality level here. I mean, it's spread like wildfire. I saw you talking to DM and Ghazi and surprised at how many people are interested. I am having people who I haven't talked to in like a decade reaching out to me about PoE 2 because they're searching and they like saw my face or something and they're like, holy crap, there's this new game I just heard about. Like, it's spreading everywhere because the quality is so... you waited until it was ready to showcase it, right? And it looks phenomenal. So...
yeah, I mean, as I said, like just getting there has just been such a thing. Like when we announced in 2019, we thought that we were going to be releasing PoE 2 in like 2020, in like 2021. Like it felt like it was like 2 years out. Right. And like it's just difficult, right? Like just the and even it's like even like is it how long ago now? I'm thinking like so 20. Yeah, look, it's like the funny thing is it always feels like it's 2 years out. Like no matter how far deep into development, no matter how far away it is, it's always like because 2 years feels like forever, right? 2 years is like forever in the future, and so therefore, like no matter what the scope that you think that you have is, it's always like, oh yeah, we can do it in that amount of time. Sure, absolutely. And so yeah, it's just real tough, like doing that. And it feels like no matter how much experience we get, I mean, obviously, Mark and I have both been in game development a long time. No matter how much experience you get, it's like it still feels like it's impossible to really know how long something will actually take by the time you've gone things through. So yeah, it's just it's tough. It's tough for sure.
I know you said it always feels like 2 years away, Jonathan, but 9 days log in, okay? We're 9 days out.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So a few really rapid fire questions here. You guys opted in for GeForce Now for PoE 2. Do you know if that's going to be available for early access launch, or I know you guys don't have control over that, but do you know if it will be available?
I believe it's supposed to be. We've been told it is. So hopefully that all works out and people can use that.
Awesome. Now, how about the trade site on day one? Is that going to be functional?
Yeah, so we're doing everything we can to make sure that's the case. I think that there'll be some items that maybe won't show up correctly, and hopefully, like for example, the way that skill gems are rendered is like completely changed, and so I think what they're going to do for skill gems is just like show the name of the gem and the level, rather than having to work out like all the stats and everything, how that works. And I think for something like gems, it doesn't really matter because there's nothing about the gem other than just like the name and the level that actually matters as far as trade is concerned. So they're going to do their best to get everything rendered correctly, but I think it's really important to make sure we've got trade on day one.
Definitely. Oh yeah, people love trading. Now PvP, does that exist in any form? Yeah,
so
like
you
simple
can
duels.
You can do simple duels just like you could in PoE 1. We're not going to be doing anything more than that for now. That's it's there, but like we haven't done any effort really towards it. It's just like like it just is what it is, just as a fun thing. If you want to challenge your friend and just just do a thing, you can do that if you want.
Cool. Now, in the second run through of the campaign, Cruel, do bosses once again drop permanent buffs as they will on the first run through for those optional bosses, or are none of those available in the second run through?
Yep. So the second run through, it definitely does have that. So yeah, you're going to want to look for those as well. I believe that for them, that some of them are the same and some of them are different. So you'll have to look around through the map to see what's going on with that.
Oh, okay. Curious. Now, this one is, I want to be gentle with it, but it's something that a lot of people have talked about in the past. There is an MTX that is audio based that plays in towns, and everyone wants to hear the sweet songs of Camille when they go into the Clearfell encampment. Is there any way that you guys are thinking about maybe an audio slider for MTX or something like an audio adjustment maybe, or is that on your radar?
I mean, it's something that I've heard complaints about recently, so it's something that we might have to think about, but I can't say I've got a solution for it right now. By the way, just one question, speaking of audio, do you hear like a loud beeping, or is that just on my end?
That is just on your end. Chat,
sure,
do we hear a loud beeping? Let's see. No beeping. It's on your end. Is everything okay at the GGG office?
I think it's fine. It's just coming through my headset, so I'm not sure what's going on. It's all right. It's fine. I'll just ignore it.
They're telling you to not talk about the goblins.
Sure.
Okay.
Unfortunately, I don't have a good answer for you for that. But
okay, no, that's totally fine.
I do understand the issue, though.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, oh, sorry. Items. So, in the last time people got their hands on PoE2, we saw obviously the tiers, which you talked about, and can't wait to get my hands on that. We also saw items dropping with terms like advanced, expert, and ultimate. Are those related to tiers, or what is that?
So the reason why that is because so we didn't want to release. So what we've done in PoE2 is that all of the acts, they have a much more like the items that you find in each act are like way more related to the content of that act. So like as soon as you go to the desert, you're going to be finding like all of these like Marrakech themed items and so on. So for Act 4 and 5 and 6, we've obviously got a whole big set of base types that are all like, you know, related to those things. And so what we did was we're like, okay, we don't really want to like just have those dropping now because they kind of don't make sense for the content they're in. So what we decided to do was effectively make a duplicate of the base types that goes into the second set of difficulty, in second difficulty. And that way we can drop all of those there. And then that will mean that we just don't have the we don't have that we don't have to release all of that stuff now, and then effectively at the point when we release the acts, we'll effectively also release the base types at the same time, and those base types will get replaced by the and the art and everything will get replaced by the new base types that we've already got. So yeah, that's effectively the what's going on with that. Now, in in-game, there are some base types that relate to just in-game. I'm not 100% sure exactly what the situation is with regard to the art stuff that they've done there, but effectively, by the time we're sort of completely done, it should be that we're not like having to repeat any art anywhere and all that sort of stuff. But for the time being, we've just got that going on.
Oh, okay, awesome. Now, also related to items in the tiers. Obviously, tier 5 item will have amazing mods, amazing rolls, and the like once you identify it. What happens if you craft on it?
It doesn't affect anything after you've identified it. So effectively, once you've ID'd it, like you've seen the mods are there, then effectively it is just a regular item as far as any other, like just like any other item would be. And that's kind of important because it's only really in the unidentified state when you see the tier. After that point, the tier doesn't matter anymore because like the decision that resulted from that is already decided and everything's everything's done.
Okay, awesome. Thanks for the question, by the way, MP. That was from Empyrean. Okay, another one. So, I know that you vastly increased the number of orbs that are dropping in early game, and the intent is for people to be using said orbs on crafting. Are you at all worried about how this will affect the greater economy if people decide to just hoard everything and try to post it on the trading post? I'm curious about that because I'm going to be spamming my gear, but I think a lot of people will be like, I'll just save it to trade, you know?
I think it will be fine. So the nice thing about currency is that it's self-syncing, right? Like you get to actually use all that stuff. And I'm pretty sure people will be using it more because they have more. Like I think that's just how it will work. So usually speaking, you don't really get hyperinflation with currency items because the way that, they actually have as I said, because they're self-syncing.
Yeah.
But you never know. Like we never really can tell exactly what will happen with an economy until we actually see it. But I really hope we don't have any problems from that because having the more currency in the game just definitely makes the game significantly better to play through the game. I'm loving it. I just like the experience of doing all that stuff. So I really want to be able to keep that. And I think just the fact that you kind of don't have the scouring orb anymore, and the way that like things are always added, like you're going to be wanting to add mods all the time. Like it's just a common thing. And there's even sort of rules, like for example, so it used to be that when you alked an item, it gave you a random set of mods from 4 to 6, but now it's always 4. So it's like there's always going to be that you want to do the alk and then the exalts. So like there's just more uses for that stuff. Like the adding stuff definitely, just happens more often.
Yeah, I heard somebody got 4 exalted orbs by the end of Act 1 and just felt so good being able to slam their items. So
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, runes. I know they're a recent addition. I had a few questions about them. First, are all runes just basic stats, such as resistances and the like, or are there any spicy combinations that might remind us of fan favorite ARPG, maybe later down the line?
So we don't have rune words. And the funny thing the funny thing about that is that like I actually had a long conversation about this because it's one of those things that everyone remembers loving. But the funny thing about that is that like what they actually remember loving was not so much the mechanic of rune words, but just the fact that all the rune words were super OP. The rune words were just crazy powerful. And so like when people are like, oh, I love rune words, it's like they think it's the mechanic they liked, but no, like it's just the items were just absolutely outrageous. It's sort of funny how it was like that.
Okay.
But what I will say is that like so runes are intended to be the kind of simple ones that don't have a lot of a lot of complexity going on. So it's the soul cores that you can put in the same sockets. Those are the ones that are intended to kind of have where there's more complexity, there's different stats, there's different things going on with them.
Okay. And with those, they're unremovable, correct? You can't take them out of here once you socket them in?
And that's just kind of our general philosophy of the fact that we want most crafting to be additive. Now, we still do have some crafting things that remove mods, but I guess the difference with the sockets is that every single mod that went in there, it's like there's no randomness to those decisions, right? Like every single thing you put in, it's like you completely controlled that outcome. So therefore, we don't feel like we have to provide a way to remove that because it's like that's entirely in your control. Whereas when you're talking about the random chance addings, like then it's like there can be ways that are also based on random chance to be able to remove that again. And then we've also got things like the omens that allow you to have more control over that. So like that sort of stuff makes sense. But for the socketables, it's like, well, yeah, it's like you chose to put that in. It's like, I think the additive philosophy works fine for that.
Okay, awesome. Now, 2 more questions on items here really quickly. One of them is about Splinter stack size. Now, I know we want to declutter the screen for Pathofexile 2 and keep the focus on combat, but it looked like from the trailer, the stack size, for example, the Breachstone is still 300. What's the design philosophy between like 300 stack size and 25 stack size?
So they actually drop like in stacks, and the reason why that's important is because it means that we can have effects that say if there's a mod that's like 10% splinters, it means that when we drop a stack of 10, that plus 10% can actually make it a stack of 11, which so basically it's just to give granularity so that when we're dropping them, we actually can like have the mods like a plus 10% can actually be a thing that actually does something. So that's the reason why it's 300. It isn't necessarily to change like the amount of like things on the screen or the amount of the amount of duration that it takes to actually get to the boss. It's just about the granularity for mods basically.
Okay, awesome. One more item question, and then just one final question for you. Thank you so much for your time, Jonathan. I really appreciate it. Will there be vendor recipes in Pathofexile 2? And if so, any examples?
So we actually decided to not do the system the same way how we did it before. So so basically, we no longer have the vendor recipe like idea as a concept where there's just a vendor who, where you could just do like any combination of items in the vendor. So the vendor that has that same UI is like for disenchanting. And then effectively what we've done is we've tried to pull like the different vendor recipes out into like benches or like items in the world or like NPCs with specific modes or things like that. Effectively like all of those things we want to try and make sure that they're kind of like just more discoverable than what they were in PoE 1. So like what we kind of want to do is like if we're going to do like for example the quality recipe where you had like 40% quality and you get a whetstone.
Yep.
Now that we've got the salvage bench, that's like a specific bench that's able to effectively replace the thing that was doing by something that effectively serves the same function, but it's like discoverable now because you've got like a bench that's dedicated to quality and also socket currency items. And if we're going to do for example, a 3-to-1 recipe, there is an item, a thing you get later, which has like three slots and then a bottom slot, and then you click the button that like, combines them. And it's like got its own thing. So effectively it means that like, it's like more obvious, like when there's stuff like that. And effectively for each time where we want to have something that's like a vendor recipe, we can sort of find a place to put it, like make it more thematic, like have a little UI for it. There's even things like well, maybe I won't spoil the other ones, but effectively, whenever, but effectively, whenever we're doing, when we need a function like that, I think it's cooler to have a specific user interface, a specific place, a specific NPC, a specific object, like something like that you find that allows for that. And so it kind of gives you a hint that such a thing even exists in the first place. And then now that you've seen that, you're like, okay, what actually goes in here? Like, what is this for? Like, then like maybe you can have like little lore hints, things like that. It just makes the whole thing a little bit more discoverable, and I think a little bit more interesting. So yeah, that's effectively how I've replaced that system.
Yeah, when you said that, now I'm thinking that there could be nodes on the Atlas that house systems like this, little secrets where you could go and find these little crafting benches, which just sounds like so much fun. I know we talked about it earlier, the Atlas and the exploration aspect of it,
right.
Huge W. I cannot wait to go in and just explore it. It's going to be great.
Yeah.
Okay, Jonathan, I've got one last question for you, and then we'll let you go. Thank you so much for your time again.
No problem.
I want you to give me the best single reason for everyone in the chat right now, everyone watching this VOD, to buy a supporter pack and log in on December 6th at 2 p.m. Eastern.
I think that really probably the main thing that you're going to love is just fighting those bosses. The combat with them is just like so fun. They're so varied and interesting. Like I'm just like, there's a lot of them to fight. If you play on December 6th, there'll be a lot of bosses to fight, and I'm sure you're going to have a great time with them. It really is, I think, one of the things we're doing the best out of all the things we're doing.
Jonathan, will you be logging in on December 6th?
Of course. I mean, as soon as there's some kind of horrible fire with the servers, then I'll immediately have to probably deal with that instead. But so long as there aren't any problems, I'm going to be playing, absolutely.
All right, Jonathan, man, it's been great. Every time I talk with you, it's always so smooth. Everybody appreciates your time. Good luck the next 9 days. Okay?
Yep.
All right. So that's the 2 interviews that have happened recently. I think Zizarin will be doing an interview in next couple of days as well. I also wanted to take a look at what they posted on Pathofexile. Let's see. Where is it at? There's another... There's another video because they were showing off weapons and stuff. So we'll relook at the one they posted yesterday, and then we'll look at the next one. So the one they posted yesterday has 2 scepters. As we can see, this scepter, Omen Scepter, it grants level 18 Malice. This one gives 67% increased Spirit, plus 17 mana, which I'm pretty sure is pretty low. Allies in your presence, so basically minions get plus attack speed and plus elemental resistance, and minions get 39% increased maximum life. But Malice, of course, does critical weakness. Duration is 4%, applies critical weakness. So basically increase the critical strike chance of let's see, critical weakness causes hits against affected target to have plus 5.5% critical hit chance, and can stack up to 20 times. So you can get 10% the critical hit chance. So for minions, if you're going crit based, this would be the thing that you'd want. And as we can see, discipline is no longer an aura that applies to you, allies. So, and emits an aura that grants allies in your presence energy shield boosted on your mana. Based on your mana. The aura does not affect you. Allies add 38% of your maximum mana to their total maximum energy shield. So again, this is gonna, you know, it's big change for discipline, since discipline will no longer apply to you. We look at this stat, that's a, you know, almost doubling your spirit right there. Of course, mana is mana. Huge damage boost to allies, period. So of course that'll be your minions, but any party members. Huge boost. I don't know what presence is. Oh wait, no, what am I thinking? Presence. Yeah, huge boost to increased cast speed this time instead of attack speed. +3 to all minion skills. That's crazy. And minions have 20%. Yeah, the minion one is kind of eh. And the cast speed's probably kind of low. Well, 19% is probably not too bad. They can probably roll up to about 20 some odd percent. +3 has to be the max. This is probably kind of low. Maybe like T3-ish. Yeah, that's so crazy. Look at the spirit on that scepter. 197 spirit on top of the, let's see, you start out at 100, you can get 30 times 6. So that's what, 180. So you can get 280 plus this, and crazy amounts of spirit for the amount of minions and stuff you can get. And then today they said they released this one. Let's see what it is. We got Ball Lightning. It's an AoE projectile lightning spell. Oh, it doesn't say spell, so it's AoE projectile lightning. Level 11, cost of mana, cast time, critical hit chance 9%. Requires level 41. Fires a slow-moving projectile that repeatedly shoots bolts of lightning at nearby enemies. Deals 1 to 19 damage. Hits enemies in range every 0.2 seconds. 750% more chance to shock. Fire beams at target within 1.8 meters. Archmage, while active, cast your spells to cost additional mana and deal extra lightning damage, both based on your max mana. Spells gain 5% of damage as lightning damage for each 100 mana maximum mana you have. Spells cost an additional 5.35% of your max mana. And then Wild Shards. Spell projectile cost multiplier 120. Support requirement. Support spell skills that fire projectiles. Support skills have a chance to fire many additional projectiles in a circle. Support skills have 20% chance to fire 8 additional projectiles in a circle. Okay, so that's a support right there. All right, what's this? We got, okay, Grand Skill Sigil of Power. Extra lightning damage, spell damage, mana, lightning. Jeez, this staff is insane. These critical ones are a little low, but hey. Quality 20. Sigil of Power, level 20, which is max. Place a sigil on the ground, providing powerful spell damage buff to you and your allies. While standing on it, the buff becomes more powerful the more mana you spend. Okay, gain stages, spend a total of 50% of your max mana. Mana while in area, max stage is 4. Buff grants 14% more spell damage per stage. Okay, so that's what 56%, minimum 1 second between gaining stages. Sigil radius is 3 meters. Sigil duration is 11.9 seconds. Crazy. So boom, there goes the sigil. As you're spending mana, the sigil becomes more and more clear, which means you're raising the level on it and you're doing more damage. Not bad, not bad. Pretty cool, pretty cool. definitely excited. The last thing I wanted to look at actually was stuff on Macroll. They had a whole bunch of stuff. The Path of Exile, PoE2. Let's see what else they got on here. So they have resources, teams. So they don't have too much. They have some information on the classes and the ascendancies, it appears. Okay, so we can look at the classes. It has kind of a breakdown of everything there, but not too much information. What about on the ascendancies? I know on the ascendancies, I think they took all of the like anything that they could copy from the videos. So if we go to Invoker, which is what I'll be playing, we can see some of the, yeah, this is all that was shown inside of the video. Let's see, grants elemental expression, trigger elemental expression on melee critical hit, scatter to the wind. So this is when your critical hits, they'll throw out elemental damage. Meditation we saw. The only thing is there's not a, that they didn't give us much information on like a duration or if it just goes away once you lose it, but it basically it doubles your energy shield. So energy shield's definitely going to be a big thing for Monk. I assume that we could probably go Chaos Inoculation and just have major amounts of energy shield and just double it. So like, I don't know if the scaling is going to be on the same level as PoE1, but you know, if you go from like 10k to 20k or 20k to 40k kind of thing, of course these are going to be cool. Gain 10% damage as extra cold damage on freezing enemies. Create chilled ground. On 25% chance on shocking enemies to create shock ground. So this one's guaranteed, and this one is 25% chance, and then of course Unbound Avatar. But overall, it doesn't look like they have too much information here on Maxroll, which is awesome. I'm glad they don't have too much information. Path of Exile 2 build guides and more. I don't think so. Let's see. Do they already have stuff? Hold on. I gotta see this. Overview, skills, and guide. Okay, hold on.
Welcome to Path of Exile 2. We'd like to start off by showing some of the gameplay of Act 3, one of the colorable range. Significant freeze. The great thing about
okay, so this is an old video. I don't even know if there's gonna be anything there. It talks about the CC mechanic. This is a screenshot from the video showing a list of the skills. Putting it together. Monk Ascendancy classes, Invoker. Acolyte, Child. Okay, so they really don't have to talk about build. I mean, come on. All right, so there's not that much information out there on this. I don't think there's too much more out on Path of Exile 2 as far as interviews go. I checked out everything that I think was super important. If there's anything else you'd like to discuss, let me know. But I think those were there was this. I did want to watch this. I think it's yeah. Let's watch this. I wanted to watch it earlier.
This is one of the strongest announcements I've ever seen in the history of ARPGs.
This is insane.
Holy crap, this is gonna be incredible.
This is old school RuneScape.
You gotta play it.
I'm excited. This is perfect.
Diablo 4 is cooked.
See, this is what Diablo 4 should have been.
Like, Diablo 4 is bad, Diablo 4 is dead.
I'm gonna quit Diablo 4.
That this beta has more depth to it than Diablo 4 does after the expansion. Like, this is fucking insane.
Welcome back, you freaking traitors. You probably clicked on this video to hear about Path of Exile 2, and that absolutely disgusts me. Anyway, in this video, I'll be going over all the major issues with Path of Exile 2, followed by a recent tweet by the Diablo 4 Giga Chad himself, Rod Diablo-like Ferguson, as well as many other well-known Diablo 4 superfans' thoughts and plans in regards to Path of Exile 2. Alright, let's jump in and get to the major problems with this game.
Unfortunately, Path of Exile 2 will not be available on Mac OS at the start of early access, but we're keen to have this platform. Okay, so Mac gamers once again are taking an L.
Well, that sums up all the major problems with PoE 2. Sucks to be you, Mac gamers. Anyway, on to bigger news. Let's recap the tweet heard by literally billions of people around the world.
Look at Rod Ferguson's tweet. Is this the Diablo-like thing? Is this that bullshit about that? Let me see if I can find it. Where's Rod Ferguson? There it is. Let me double check.
So, a couple of days ago, when the PoE 2 stream ended, literally, X is blowing up, people are posting like crazy, holy crap, this is gonna be incredible. Rod Ferguson,
the general manager of all of Diablo, decided to go on Twitter and absolutely cook himself with this unhinged take.
Oh my goodness. Hogs got the video. Path of Exile 2 reveal was so epic it steamed Rod Ferguson. All right, what is
the
it?
genre of ARPG is starting to mean a lot of different things. Much like Souls-like and roguelike, I wonder if we could normalize Diablo-like.
So here's the thing, Diablo-like games were every game that came after Diablo 2. However, with the changes and what's going on with Path of Exile 2, this is my personal opinion. So D2 was the standard for the longest time. And yes, PoE took the reins and it ran with a lot of stuff. But at the start of PoE, it was pretty trash. Path of Exile 1 was rough, to say the least, at the very beginning. It has gotten so much better over time. And PoE 2 is basically what I was expecting from Diablo 4. Path of Exile 2 is going to be the new standard for ARPGs, the new gold standard for ARPGs when it comes to mechanics, when it comes to gameplay, and everything. Yeah, no, D2 is, but it was the standard for the longest time, and I still held it to that to that pedestal, is it being the standard. But I think PoE 2 is gonna take that, and it's gonna be the new standard. So to me, after PoE 2, after they've built everything up, PoE 2 is gonna be the new standard, and it's gonna be the one that you compare other ARPGs to, instead of trying to compare it to D2. If I'm being honest here. D4 should have been so much better than what it is. It's not a terrible game, but it's not what it should have been, for sure. And 2 letdowns in a row like that, D3 and then D4, it's kind of upsetting coming from Blizzard, such a big company. What specifically, David? What is it? What is something that you from PoE 1 that that isn't in PoE 2 that that you like? And again, they're not getting rid of PoE 1. They're still going to be making leagues for it. In fact, the next league for PoE 1 is going to be in late February.
For ARPGs that follow the Diablo formula.
I absolutely cannot believe that this is real. Out of
Well, the only reason that they removed that is so it's easier for you to do the sockets. So the sockets still exist, they're just not on your gear anymore. Now you actually have sockets to put other things into your gear, and the skills themselves have the sockets. So that way you don't have to worry about coloring and stuff. And it gives you more options as far as creating builds with different, you can have multiple, you have multiple 6-link skills and be able to use them at their max, their max efficiency and everything. I suppose so, but I think that iteration was, it was flawed in a sense, because I mean, even I know people that still struggle with that. Yeah, I mean, yeah, but I mean, think about it. In PoE 1, a lot of the times people would just go and blanch their items just to get white sockets. You'd get an item and you'd be like, oh, well, it's hard to roll this way, so I'm just gonna get all white sockets or as many white sockets as possible and try and get off colors. You waste so much time trying to do that instead of playing the game.
All the badass stuff that was showcased, after all the in-game, after all the Atlas rework, dual skill trees, and weapons that you can dual wield in one hand, all the 6 classes, and all this badass shit that they showed us yesterday at the Pathofexile 2 early access live stream. This right here was my favorite. That shit triggered Rod Ferguson so bad that he had to go make a tweet.
Rod Ferguson is scared. He is threatened, so he's lashing out. Grinding Gear Games has made something tremendous with Pathofexile 2. It has Blizzard shivering, and the game isn't even out yet.
No wonder Rod was making tweets. No, this isn't an ARPG. It's just like Diablo. Like, yeah, sure, Rod. Getting mad.
Bruh, you ain't even followed the Diablo like you ain't even got a goddamn Diablo in your game. So just please go sit down and get out of here.
Now, maybe he's scared, maybe he's a little nervous, but the last thing you want to do is come across as petty. And that's how this looks.
I think it's very unprofessional. If I was the VP of a game company, I wouldn't be throwing shade. That's a very passive-aggressive way to throw shade at GGG indirectly.
But this is such bad form. It is absolutely terrible. Like, the timing on it, everything about it just looks really, really bad. It comes across as jealous.
Well, hold up. You guys are the ones sounding jealous. Do you even know how freaking cool the term Diablo-like sounds? Look, I can completely see what Rod is talking about here, and the term Diablo-like is already spreading like wildfire. For example, when a game you are super hyped for launches and it's completely not what you expected, that's Diablo-like. When a company removes a key feature, like a charger for a phone, then sells that key feature back to you later on, that's Diablo-like. When a game has a skill tree system with no meaningful options, that's Diablo-like. When you are at a self-checkout, but you are asked to tip for doing the job the company you are tipping should be doing, well, that's Diablo-like. And lastly, when a game you took off for work for has a massive delay on launch that lasts for hours or even days, yeah, you guessed it right, that's Diablo-like. So you should probably give Rod a little slack here. He knows what he is doing and is completely not jealous at all about PoE 2. In fact, PoE 2 should be thanking Diablo, not the other way around, right?
The thing is that, and Grinding Gear Games would be the first people to say this, that they owe a lot to Diablo 3. Because Diablo 3 being dog shit on release, dude, when the PoE closed beta came out, every single person in the general chat was talking about how shitty Diablo 3 was. And you know what's so fucking funny? Is when this game comes out, every single person in the general chat is going to be talking about how shitty Diablo 4 is.
Okay, let's check in on some real loyal Diablo 4 superfans, who I am sure are going to stick with D4 instead of this Diablo-like PoE 2.
Hey folks, this is Riker, and this week saw the most hype live stream the ARPG world has ever seen, the announcement of Diablo 4, Season of the Witch Doctor, basically. No, obviously it was Pathofexile 2.
I'm a starving man. I'm starving for Pathofexile 2 content, so I'm going to rewatch the same live stream for 15 days in a row until this game's out, okay?
In my opinion, this is one of the strongest announcements I've ever seen in the history of ARPGs.
I think I can kind of get away with less time spent from now on in Diablo 4 and more time invested into PoE 2. I'm going to be blasting this game at the very least until Season 7 launches, and then probably go right back into PoE 2.
Holy shit. Okay, alright, Rob, please tell me you didn't drink the Kool-Aid too.
I'm really excited to jump into PoE come December 6th.
Okay, I give up. Let's at least try and figure out why this is happening.
Something that happens almost every time a new action RPG launches is people saying there isn't enough in-game content.
Nah, that's never happened. I've personally, I've never seen that happen in an ARPG. I don't know what he's talking about.
It's not complicated and it's not intimidating at all, which is why Diablo 4 sold so well. Almost no barrier to entry. They're great for casual players. The problem is it lacks an endgame almost entirely.
I'm really excited to jump into PoE. The biggest reason for me by far is probably the crazy endgame that they have. This focus on the endgame is just absolutely crazy and fresh and new to me, because coming from...
Did he just say the focus on in-game is crazy and fresh and new to me? Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Yeah, before. After a certain amount of time, there is not that much to do in...
I'm sorry, I have to laugh.
There truly is nothing to do.
Holy shit, dude. Dude, back to back, saying the same thing. I love how the reaction is the same from literally everyone.
Well, I guess that's not literally true, but there aren't really any great rewards for doing that. I don't have any super awesome mounts. I don't have any titles. My character isn't glowing. I can't link you an item that is so rare and so godly that you wouldn't be able to find it yourself from all the hours that I put into it. The rewards are just not there.
Man, it gets worse. Nothing to do, no reason to do the things there are to do, and no rewards for doing them.
Okay, guys, I think it's inevitable. I also need to try this game out, and for exactly the reason you may think. To bring to light why PoE 2 is a vastly inferior game to the masterpiece we call Diablo 4. But for real, guys, I will be making a lot more videos on PoE 2, and you probably should be trying this game out yourself. It looks awesome. Please subscribe.
Diablo 4, oh yeah, I swear I love it more than I can bear.
Oh boy, that was hilarious. But that is everything that we really need to know. If there's some of the basics from the initial launch that you'd like to know, please check out my channel on YouTube. I've got some condensed information. The one we just watched, the Rod Ferguson stuff, all of that was yeah. Yeah, I'm pretty sure this guy,
Welcome back.
Like a bunch of jokes, mid campfire chat, delays, a lot of Diablo stuff here. Oh no, Rod Ferguson, he legit made that tweet. I saw that tweet and I was just like, bro, like Diablo like was, you know, a D after D2 kind of thing. Missed the boat on that entirely. That's what I was saying. PoE 2 is gonna be the new gold standard. PoE 2 is going to be what every RPG is gonna want to be. I mean, I don't know if that's gonna happen. Not because GGG probably could eventually, maybe, but they'd have to deal with the fact that Blizzard's owned by, what is it, Activision? And yeah, it's a whole different thing. Honestly, like I wish some of the, you know, Diablo 2 creators and even D1 creators just came back and like were picked up by GGG. I think they could bring a lot of good stuff to the game, mechanically speaking. And the thing is even if you look like I was talking about earlier in PoE 2, there's a lot of mechanics that kind of revolve around things that have already existed. There are some mechanics that are just straight up hijacked from like other games, but it's because PoE, GGG, they learn and they expand what they're doing. Like, and it makes sense. You know, it makes sense. Why would you not learn from your mistakes? And if there's something that works, why would you remove it? Why wouldn't you just add it in? D4 could have been so much better at launch if they would have taken some of the things that actually worked in D3 and added them in right away instead of waiting for, you know, multiple seasons to do it. And I mean, Path of Exile is like it's blowing up so hard on X/Twitter. Pretty much everybody's talking about it. Everybody's talking about like the wait. Everybody's talking about everything. Oh wow. I wonder if it started on Steam yet. Can I download stuff? Doesn't look like I can download stuff. Planned release coming soon. Apparently there was an update for PoE 1 though. I better be able to download this a couple days early, but I already got my key. Path of Exile 2 sitting in my Steam library. I just gotta wait. I mean, considering the fact that the Atlas itself is kind of like Delve, it's ever expanding. I don't see why they couldn't add another variant or, you know, something like that. But yeah, for sure. That was a fun thing, but then, you know, they have to also look into whether they want to bring the crafting mechanic of fossils and all that stuff. Like I think one of the easier ones to bring over would also be like betrayal. Yeah, because I got my key, but my key was through Steam, so I don't know if I'll be able to download it from here or not. Yeah. Get access now. Oh, these packs, man. These packs are so cool. If I was working, I'd buy this one right here. It's friggin' awesome. This when you get your own like island kind of thing as your base. It's so crazy. You can like do little boat races and stuff. Insane. But I think that covers pretty much all of the info. Like I said, if you want to look at any of the info from the large release, so I have a few videos that are kind of much more condensed. So a 6-minute, a 4-minute, and a 13-minute, which covers like crafting, early game campaign stuff, and then of course the end game stuff. This covers all the mechanics that are in end game. Go give them a look. I appreciate everybody who came by. Thank you, Nate. Thank you, David, for coming and chilling with me. Anybody else was chilling that didn't talk up, that's fine. Anybody that followed recently, I appreciate it. Thank you very much. You have a good one, buddy. But I'm gonna go ahead and wrap up. I will see y'all next time. I think tomorrow we might do some PoE 1 and keep stalling for the time being. But for now, this is Elder Vo saying over and out. Y'all have a good one.